Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Scott. How are you? Thank you for joining us on Spaced Out Radio tonight, where we get into UFOs, UAP, disclosure, confirmation, the agendas of the groups who have a keen interest on what's happening up in space. Franc Milburn is our guest tonight. We'll bring him to you here in just a few minutes. Dirty Filth is also here drawing some cartoons. Let's say hello to everyone in our chat room tonight. Race fan in the gold medal position. A Muse taking home the silver. Awesome Man B with a bronze medal here. Excuse me. Oh, sorry about that. Don't know where that came from. Michael Morris, Lisa, Mama Susan, Nightmare. How y'all doing? Roy Boy, always good to see you, my man. Awesome Man Palmer. John Swan, good to have you all here. Cat Chaser, you're looking awesome tonight. Kathy Evans, thanks for coming on in. Cosmic Floor, good to see you. Hi, Jules. Nice to have you back. Dirty Filth, good to see you. As we continue on with roll call here. Tombstone is here. Tombstone will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind. To the left of the studio. Brown Dwarf, nice to have you back. As we continue on with roll call. Les Paul Holland. Kevin, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. There's our man, Millennium. How are you? Good to have you back. And let's continue on. Black Dragon is here, one of our favorite veterans, the former Marine. Thank you so much for your service. We very much appreciate it. All veterans here have a safe home, always at Spaced Out Radio. Ozzy, oi, oi to you, my friend. As we continue on with roll call, Alien Critter is here. Alien Critter will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, to the right of the studio. Let's continue on. Hi, Robin McRae. We'll hear from her later, filling in for Super Duke. Are you serious? Was that a mistake, Cat Chaser? Was that a mistake? Oh, my. All right. That caught my attention. Mr. Steam Gnome, how you doing? Ken Pass, welcome back. Cecil, always a pleasure. Noble Patrick, nice to see you. Judy of Gaul, looking very Gaul tonight. And there's Hallie and John Hinoyosa. Thank you for coming on in. No, it wasn't a mistake. Oh, my gosh. Invisible Tracker, I'm shaking right now. Gansfeld Files, how are you? Eric Martin, and this is why I'm shaking right there. Like, holy cow. Thank you. Michael Fontaine, Donna Spencer, nice to see you here as we're going to start the radio side. Cat Chaser, I really needed something good to happen today. I've had one of those days, and you are an angel today to me. Thank you. Thank you. See me now, Agent X11. Welcome to SOR Chat. Pam Smith, thank you for joining us. Hi, Pam Harris. Very much appreciate. We are caught up, and as you can tell by Cat Chaser, Super Chat is open, and Yeah, we got like 40 seconds. I'm a little stunned right now. Hi, Bill WD40 over in Spreaker. You're looking magnificent tonight. And Paramarv, how are you? Yeah. I got 15 seconds to get it together. And then we got to rock and roll. Let's do this. Horns up. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do Old Navy the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot. Read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. A power show of UFO talk tonight as Franc Milburn is here to talk about the agendas in ufology going on right now. Then in hour number 3, we are going to have the Swamp Dweller back for another spooky story. Robin McRae fills in for a relaxing and resting Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio on the Cryptid Report, and Shirky Poo has the news. All right, if you've never heard of Franc Milburn, you're going to be very impressed with who he is after tonight. Frank is somebody who is a former intelligence officer with over 22 years of experience producing threat and risk assessments for clients operating in hostile environments from North Africa to Iraq and all around the world. His experience includes providing strategic and operational assessments of prevailing business environments for extractive industries, as well as a variety of Fortune 500, aerospace, and government clients. But Frank also has another keen interest, and that is UFOs, ufology, the secrets behind it, and what is happening around the world. Are there agendas going on within the UFO community on a story that will literally affect everybody on this planet being controlled by just a handful of people? Sounds kind of dangerous, doesn't it? Yeah, well, we're going to get into it heavily tonight. Franc Milburn, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for your second time, my friend. It's good to have you here and good to have you back. How you been?
Thanks very much, Dave. I've been great. Hope you're well, too.
I am very well. Now, Frank, I want to just chat with you a little bit here and let our audience get to know you a little bit here because, you know, not only do you have an intelligence background, but you are fully engulfed in the UFO world as well. How did you make that transition from intelligence to finding UFOs?
I didn't really, Dave. I was brought up with sort of phenomena in general and UAP in particular. So as a youngster, from a very young age, my house was always full of books about UFOs and about phenomena in general. And I'd say my mom, my grandmother, and my grandfather, my mum's father, were all experiencers as well. So that's really I was always open to it from an early age. And then in the military, let's just say, I became aware much more about the UAP issue, and then I kind of left it alone for quite a few years, just reading the occasional book. and then really sort of something inside me, kind of in my head, just kind of popped about 2016, and I started getting back into it big time, reading as much as I could, and watching as much as I could on the topic UFOs and phenomena, the wider phenomena. And from there, yeah, rest is history. I started writing about it eventually.
Wow. Frank, for you, as you have followed the lines of being an experiencer, followed the lines of, having to work under very tight security and intelligence programs, I think you're one of the great ones here that we can really, really delve into about the agendas of the UFO world. This is something that's right up your alley. And the one thing that I know about you, and I think this is probably the only thing you and I have in common, besides being all part of the Commonwealth, which is kind of cool, that is the fact that we both know how to read between the lines, find the story and the information that's being told, but not being told very clearly. How important is it for people in ufology today, or anybody who has a minimal to keen interest, to start really reading and delving between the lines of what people in official positions are saying on this subject?
Yeah, I think that's very important. Apart from sort of people in official positions, whether it's sort of scientists, current or former government insiders, people from the community, I think it's very important to kind of clear away a lot of waffle in sort of like traditional ufology. And when you're looking at these people specifically who come from, like I said, government background, scientific background, intelligence background, it's very important to assess not only their backgrounds, but also to try to work out exactly what they do and what they say might well indicate that they're taking a course of action other than what you think is their particular course of action. So I think that has to be evaluated very carefully, and as you say, read between the lines. We can go on and talk about this a lot later, but I think, for example, all the current sort of drama that's been going on social media about Lou Elizondo specifically, and kind of Chris Mellon, his partner in crime, as it were. I don't mean crime, but his partner. I think if people understood really what the agenda actually was from those two, then they would probably come to different conclusions about their motivations and also their modus operandi, how they're actually going about trying to achieve their objectives.
I want to ask you, recently a new gentleman came out saying that he is representing Lou Elizondo as his lawyer now, and seems to be wanting to target people like podcasters or bloggers or journalists or fake journalists who are out there really putting a spin on Elizondo's name and his titles, and he's gone through some very heinous words over the last couple of years, especially since he left the To the Stars Academy. Is this a setup for something, Frank? Is this a setup for something bigger than what we don't know?
I say in this particular case, the short answer is I don't know, so I'm not inside Elizondo's head. I can give you a kind of a guesstimation of what I think. I think this particular approach and all the stuff that's been on social media and this current sort of new attorney that Elizondo has, I think a lot of it's got to do with just the amount of grief that's been thrown at Elizondo, throughout the time that he's kind of appeared on the scene. Was he at ATIP? Was he ORSAP? Did he manage money? Didn't he manage funds? So I think a lot of this has to do with some of the threats as well that he's received to his family. I'm not Louis Elizondo fanboy, but also I do understand where he comes from, and he has a similar background to me. So I'm giving my own bias. I think I understand him better because we both have a counterintelligence background, for example, and I talk to Chris Mellon regularly, so I kind of understand what their agenda is. I think this has a lot to do with all the trouble that's been thrown at Lou Elizondo's way. And don't forget, if we look at it, like all the obfuscation that's been coming out of the DoD, that he was heading up, this department, or he wasn't heading up that department. He's been getting flack really from both sides, both from the people that he used to work for, and also from the UAP community. So I think that's why he is a lot more sensitive now about what is being said about him. But people immediately will see that maybe as threatening to, I don't know, their freedom of speech or what they can or they cannot say. But I'm waiting out. I'm keeping my powder dry to see what happens with it.
Yeah, I think we are all kind of looking at seeing what happens here as things go down. I mean, in some ways, like for instance, I've been very public that I am a fan of Lou Elizondo's. I think he has a very big place in what we are doing going forward in the future, whatever that may be. But on the flip side, that doesn't mean that he isn't. Or doesn't have to skip the tough questions, doesn't have to skip the questioning of him. There's a big difference between questioning and beratement or belittling or disparaging or something like that. But I mean, I think Lou at times needs to be asked some tough questions, and I think coming from a journalistic background, that's awfully fair.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, I come from I worked as a journalist as well, although nothing so interesting. It was like business risk management. But no, you have to ask people tough questions. I kind of fall between, I admire and I respect Lou. I agree 100% with what you say. If you are making big claims, then there's accountability that goes with that. I don't think that you should ever, as we discussed previously, you should never just automatically take things that people are saying as gospel. I think somewhere between the people who take every word that he says as absolute gospel, and those who are more skeptical, although I'd say that I am sort of very broadly supportive of what he's done. And as you said, he's an incredibly important person. People like him, Chris Mellon, I mean, we wouldn't have had this level of disclosure, which has been unprecedented for the last few decades. We wouldn't have had this level of disclosure without people like Lou coming forward. And he's probably he's the most important contemporary person in the topic.
And that's very true. But what side is he on? Is he on the disclosure side? Is he on the space side? Because we know we like to believe that Lou Elizondo is one of the voices of disclosure, if disclosure is truly a thing. And I don't really believe at this point that disclosure is a thing. I believe it's confirmation. And that's what I'm telling my audience, Frank. And I'd love your opinion on that first and foremost. But number two, what side is Lou on? Is he on the disclosure side as a whistleblower? Or is he on the side of, let's see where this goes, because I'm also a contractor for the Space Force?
I'd say, is he about disclosure? I'd say yes and no. I'd say he's about disclosure. And I'll give you what I think is my broad view of his and Chris Mellon's agenda. And like I said, I speak to Chris from time to time. First and foremost, they're American patriots. Okay, so Chris has been through government, a senior position. Elizondo obviously has done the business for his country as well. I believe that they are about disclosure as far as it is getting Congress invested in the UAP topic and making sure that these kind of special access programs, unacknowledged special access programs, that there's a light shone on them, so there's more transparency within government, right? And that's the key phrase, within government, because let's face it, a lot of these things, even with hearings, are not going to come out to the general public simply because of the sensitivity of the technologies involved. But what I believe personally, and is that Elizondo and Chris Mellon, they believe that, as Dr. Eric Davis said, that progress on re-engineering craft and developing these technologies in general has been too slow. Remember, Dr. Eric Davis said, in interviews that the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand, and if you're an engineer or you're a scientist in one program and you hit a stumbling block, you can't easily talk to somebody else. When you can't talk to somebody else at all, he's outside of that black program because of all the secrecy issues involved. Now, in the thrust of my second development of UAP technology a fait accompli, I kind of laid this out. I think that Elizondo and Mellon, they basically want to have a sort of a Manhattan Project 2, which is like a massive overarching program that brings together all these unacknowledged special access programs and other black programs, whether it's at the DoD, whether it's at the Department of Energy, whether it's programs that they run out of NASA that we don't know about, which have been related to UAP historically. Okay, in terms of what NASA knows about craft that are not ours, effectively. And recently, Elizondo has said that he also might be thinking about running for Congress. So, surprise, surprise, if he did run for Congress and if he were elected, which committees do you think that Elizondo would want to be sitting in on? The ones that actually delve into and have control over special access programs. So I believe that, Mellon and Elizondo, they want to have an overarching program that brings together all these black programs because of two reasons. One, as Dr. Eric Davis has said, by 2049, we need to have the technology, America needs to have the technology which approximates the capabilities of 5 observables and tic tacs in case the intelligences behind UAP turn out to be hostile. And on the other hand, there's the People's Republic of China, which has stated that, incidentally, that by 2050, it wants the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, which would make China, their objective is, to be preeminent power in the world in technological terms, economic terms, and military terms. So for those reasons, Mellon and Elizondo, they believe that there hasn't been enough progress in reverse engineering the craft and developing basically deployable squadrons of these craft, which America really leads right now. And so for that reason, their disclosure effort is more aimed at Congress rather than at the public in general.
Milburn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. And hey, Frank, we are having a little bit of audio technical difficulty. We'll get to those during the break here in just a few minutes' time. But I want to ask you, okay, how does the public or the UFO world continue to back Luis Elizondo? And like I said, I'm coming at this from the side that I am a fan of what Elizondo is doing. When here he is saying that he's the voice of the public, he knows he's got a responsibility to the American public about this conversation. Yet the Liberation Times earlier today releases a story saying that Elizondo continues to work for U.S. Space Force on classified topics. Isn't that an oxymoron?
Well, not really. You mean is it a contradiction for Elizondo?
And a contradiction. Whatever
I
you
don't
want
believe
to
it is, because at the end of the day, he's got to put bread on the table, for himself and his family. By his own admission, he went through a period of kind of quite a lot of hardship, and I think he continues to serve his country, and also as well. I mean, what better way to actually to continue to have knowledge and be able to talk to people when you're still basically on the inside to some extent. So I don't think that's a problem. I think in terms of UAP community, what they need to do is, yes, question what Elizondo says, analyze what he does, and I outlined what I think is the agenda of Elizondo and Chris Mellon. So maybe people look at his objectives and his methods in terms of what that potential agenda is, and also as well continue to support Elizondo through not having a witch hunt about him, questioning what he says, yes, but all the kind of nastiness that you see on social media and trying to rip the guy to shreds, that doesn't help anybody. It's like biting the hand that feeds you, because as we've already said, he's the most important figure in UAP studies in decades.
Okay, Frank, your audio is starting to cut out a little bit more frequently here. So we got about 5 minutes to go here. I'm not really sure what's going on because we had a really good connection right before the show starts. I believe it's aliens, Frank. I always, when in doubt, blame the aliens, and that's what I'm doing tonight regarding this. But I want to ask you, as someone who knows how the intelligence background is, for us lay people who don't know how the military works and don't really understand, I don't think we have a problem with Lou Elizondo, making money and taking care of his family and paying his mortgage and car bills and heating bills and cell phone and maybe after all that putting a little bit away for retirement. I don't think that's an issue whatsoever. All we're saying is that, to me, it looks a little suspicious or ironic that the one topic that he is talking about is the same topic that he is talking and working on for the U.S. Space Command. I mean, to me, it's amazing. I wish I had that world where during the day I'm talking privately about UFOs and getting paid money for it, as well as a nice 401k and medical and dental and everything. But at night, I get to go on the radio and say, hey, let's talk some UFOs and hang out that way with people in the public and say, hey, I could tell you everything, but that's my NDA. And I believe if I speak for the people, not myself, but for the people, I can see where they are starting to gain distrust in the message as that's starting to flow through as we start to bring this towards the agendas.
Yeah, I personally don't see it as a contradiction, and I think true change comes from within, and that's for people like Elizondo and Mellon. So I don't have a problem personally with the current work that Lou does for the Space Force. I mean, he is still working as an insider, and he is at the same time bringing things to light. So I think he's playing quite a difficult kind of balancing act. I think that the dichotomy that the so-called UFO communities had for years is, on one hand, they completely distrust government intelligence insiders, and then on the other hand, those are exactly kind of people that people in the UFO community are expecting to bring about disclosure.
Well, I guess what I see in it is somebody who is trying to control the narrative. It's very easy to control the narrative when you're the face of the franchise and you're also the insider of another franchise.
Yeah, but look at the guy's background. Like, he's former counterintelligence, so I mean, it doesn't really surprise me at all. And maybe I find it easier to be more comfortable with it than other people. But I think overall, the vibe I get from him, certainly from Chris Mellon, is a good one. There's nothing I think sinister about it. They just want to bring about a situation whereby the USA stays preeminent in the world. I don't think there's anything sinister about that.
Very true. Very true. But I hope you could appreciate me, for the sake of our audience, playing a devil's advocate here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think people should. I think the light should be shone on people like that. I take issue when it kind of gets to kind of like the nastier elements when they kind of go after his family. But I mean, I've got no problem. I think
exactly.
I think, for example, John Greenwald. I mean, he does fantastic work, right? And I'm an avid watcher of his productions, and he's been delving very heavily kind of into these parts. And I think that's perfectly valid to do from a journalistic point of view. You need to do that. I mean, if you're a prime minister of a country or you're a government minister, if you're in a position of power or influence, in the case of Lou Elizondo, great influence, then you expect to be put under a microscope. But I think you need to draw a line where it kind of evolves into something being really, really nasty. And it has been very, very nasty for Lou, and I feel really bad for the guy, for that reason.
Yeah, and I feel bad for it too. If people truly knew, and I had this private conversation with Lou probably about 6 months ago, if people actually knew some of the death threats that he was getting via email on a daily basis, threats to his wife, threats to his children, threats to his friends, ex-colleagues, threats about sending his personal information to terrorist organizations, and so on and so forth. I mean, this is real on what was going on, Frank. And the people who are throwing those threats, I don't really know who they are because I never asked them names. But I will say this, I don't think they fully understand what they are getting themselves into, because people like Elizondo are very protected one way or another. Franc Milburn is here. We're going to try and clean up his audio during the break here, so that way you get a nice, beautiful, sultry sounding Franc Milburn for the second half hour. The UFO agenda is the topic tonight. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, Frank, are you on Google Chrome?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. That doesn't solve that. Let's try and Yeah, because what's happening is your delay, the minute you
Yeah.
start talking, it's speeding up your words and then cutting you out.
Right. Sorry about. Is it ruining it? Is it?
It's really tough to understand you, and I can
Right.
hear it, and I'm trying to break it down slowly, but it's getting it seems to be getting a tad worse as we've gone on here.
Okay. I will log out and log back in again.
All right. Hi, Dirty. You're looking very
Hello,
filthy.
Dave.
What's happening in the filth land?
Oh, I slept like 38 hours last night.
Oh, nice.
I'm
What
done
was
for
that
things.
like?
This is going to be a good one, Dave. I promise. Can't show you too much, but there's going to be aliens and a man in black.
Nice.
That's all I can tell you.
All right, let's see if we got a better audio with Frank here. Hey, Frank, how you doing?
Hi, mate. Yeah. How is it sounding?
Much better now.
Okay.
Much better now.
Okay. I hope it stays that way. It's temperamental, the internet.
Oh, I hear you. Hi, brother Eugene. Hi, Steve or Jeff Steve Garvey. He'll hit a home run for you. And let's see. Where are we going here? Who else has joined us here? I think we're good. Mark D. Nice to have you. Yeah, we're sounding much better here. All right.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, I think if people kind of like put themselves maybe in the mind, try to put themselves in the mindset of Lou Elizondo and Chris Mellon, I think that they would not be surprised by what Lou and Chris have actually done. And I think you would need to be realistic and understand that it's not about disclosure for the public per se.
I'm going to get you, Frank, you started cutting out there again. Let's try and do it without your camera on. Okay? Let's
Okay.
turn just your camera off to see if we gain any signal there. All right.
Okay, how's that?
It sounds a little bit
that
better
better?
here. Yeah. So let's just run with this for right now. I know you're beautiful on the inside and out, so
No.
I think this may work.
No problem. Whatever works best for you.
All right, buddy. Let's see how it goes. Let's also try. I know with headsets, if you bring your microphone a little bit closer to your mouth, it's getting all the words better too.
Okay, close the mouth.
Yeah, let's just try everything. All right. We got about 1 minute here. 1 minute.
I'm sorry about previously. I hope it didn't ruin everything for the listeners.
No, we were able to hear, at least, but my hearing is half toast, and I could still hear it, but it just wasn't smooth. Like, I'm coming to you quite smooth, and so that's what we're working on.
Copy that.
Yeah. So, we will get her going. We got about 30 seconds. Thank you to Cat Chaser. Seriously. Science Bob, John, and Lala for the super chats tonight. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much for the love. And I got to get the store figured out. I got to figure out this whole WooCommerce thing. I'm going to try and figure it out for tomorrow when I am off duty during my daytime job. but we will do our best. And let's make this a good one. We're going to start the second half hour in about 5 seconds. So enjoy, sit back, relax, and here we go, everyone. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. All right, let's continue on with Franc Milburn, former intelligence agent out of the United Kingdom, following the UFO story very, very closely. Frank, thank you so much for coming on. We have been having some audio issues. We think we may have got them cleaned up here. Frank, good to have you with us.
Cheers, Dave. On to you on again.
All right, Frank, one of the things that I want to talk about here is it seems like we have a lot of different agendas going on. And you've heard it in backroom conversations. I've heard it in backroom conversations where it seems like you have a number of people who are scrambling to try and get what's best coming out of this whole UFO UAP story. We prefer UFO over here. I know you're an UAP kind of guy, but that really doesn't matter. So my question is, what is the purpose of all these different agendas now hopping on board, trying to get to the front line of what we are learning about UFOs?
Well, I mean, I think the two key ones are, the key battle effectively is being fought within the U.S. government and the basic battle between those who want to keep a lid on everything UFO, UAP, and exotic tech, and those like Elizondo and Lund, who want to bring it out. I think both feel that they are doing their patriotic duty. I think that maybe for the former, that's kind of like misplaced now. Maybe during the Cold War, it was kind of acceptable because A, they were concerned about the threat of UAP themselves, and B, they were very worried about the ability to mistake UAP for example, a Soviet attack. Okay, I think now that has changed. But I think the key battles are being fought out a bit behind the scenes. But when you really see the Elizondo and Mellon side of the battle, everybody else who doesn't want disclosure, effectively, they're still very opaque. It's trying to identify them.
Okay. Trying to figure out our audio issue here as we speak, because we're kind of getting cut out there quite a bit. We're going to try and continue on here on Spaced Out Radio with Franc Milburn as we speak. Frank, the idea that there is money in space, there is money in technology, there is money in what is coming. And look, when people see an opportunity, they all want to jump on it, and they want to make sure that they get their piece of the puzzle. But do you think that with any of these agendas that are going on right now, I see one personally from Stephen Greer, from NASA, from people at the Pentagon, from the U.S. Navy to the United States Air Force, and that's just in North America, let alone what's happening in the United Kingdom where you are, or Australia, China, Russia, Japan, Brazil, Canada, doesn't matter where we are going with this. So I'm just curious, with these agendas are going on, do they realize or have an understanding or even a care that this is literally a story that will affect every single person on this planet, from those living in a civilized world to those still hiding in the jungle in hidden ancient times that are still going on today.
I think most people would have a broader awareness of that. Some people will be a lot more aware because it's something they've been doing for years and years and years. I think that some people simply don't care really about the the angle of possible benefits to mankind, and I think that the most important players, it's going to be about national security, and it's going to be about who controls effectively this game-changing technology. I would like to think that these technologies could be used for the greater benefit of mankind, or humankind rather, if I want to be politically correct, the betterment of humankind, but I am very skeptical about that, because this isn't the kind of altruistic nature that I've seen human beings portray throughout history. So I think that some people, their agenda will be, yes, it'll be more about money. Some people will be definitely more concerned with national security and the game-changing implications, not just in national security, but also the broader paradigms of of economy, sociology, religion, and global politics in general.
Okay, so is what we are seeing right now a giant part of the current military-industrial complex, or is it something completely unknown to what we know of today?
I think it's a mixture of the sort of the intelligence, military, and financial complex, where this competition effectively for whether disclosure has already started to happen, but how it develops further. I see Mellon and Elizondo effectively as crusaders in that regard, even if, as I said previously, it isn't specifically for in the interest of public disclosure. It's about how you manage the development of the technology and effectively what the future course of human history is going to be, because those technologies are game changing.
Right. And we know that whatever they are, whoever they are, wherever they're from, that they hold the keys to certain technology that we don't have here on this planet. I think that's a pretty obvious saying on my end. But the idea that maybe there are people on this planet who do know because they have been in the know over the years, does that not give them an upper hand on maybe not only making lining their pockets with millions of dollars, but lining their own families up or friends up for potential careers that may not have existed or may not even exist today, but may exist 2, 3, 10, 12, 14 years down the road?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think there's two parts to that. The first part would be, yes, these people in the background, so gatekeepers, have had 7.5 decades to carry out the UFO cover-up effectively, and to suppress knowledge of it, and to ridicule it, and also to engage in these black programs, which, yes, they do suck in money. I think long term, yes, they have both. They, aside from considering themselves patriots, they do also want to keep on with, especially in the aerospace and defense industries, they want to keep on with a fairly lucrative source of income. If you have sort of constantly written checks without any balances and without any insight as to where that money is going, then obviously that's beneficial to them. I think though that what they're hoping for is the real kind of a breakout in terms of financial benefit to them would be if they could understand the technology, and then actually get to the point where they can develop squadrons and fleets of these platforms for the US military, because that's where the real money is going to come from. Now, I've heard the argument, which I don't agree with at all, that these aerospace defense companies are sitting on this technology because it would basically make all current.
We lost Frank there. We will get him back here momentarily because I think he's about to make some very interesting points on what is going on here. And yes, we've been fighting his audio all night long. I am aware of it, and we will be working on it. But hopefully, as the signal clears up here, we might be able to get a little bit more clarity out of him here. Here comes Frank right now. Frank, we have you back here, my friend. Looks like we lost a little bit of signal there, but hopefully everything's good now for you.
Yeah, can you hear me okay, Dave?
Yeah, you're sounding beautiful now.
Okay, so I was saying that there's the argument that I've heard that these aerospace and defense companies have been sitting on these exotic technologies, and that's assuming that they would be able to develop and deploy these craft. Okay, currently that they're sitting on these technologies because it would make a current, aircraft and another platform in the U.S. military, immediately outdated. And obviously, well, that's not true, because if you look at, for example, with the F-35 and the F-22, for economic reasons, the U.S. Air Force, they're feeling a spending.
Frank, we're getting right into speed mode again, and we're hearing about every second word. We're gonna try and push through and trudge through here, but I really don't know what's going on with the audio, man. I really don't.
Let me restart the computer, Dave. Let me restart the computer.
Okay. All right. We're gonna get Frank to restart it. I might throw tonight's agenda right out of the water here, and we'll just continue with the show here and go from there, because this is just way too important of a topic to not have going on, and I want to be able to bring the best to you guys. So we're trying. We are trying. So, we'll make it happen. We will. And, we'll go like that. Just wait for Frank. Oh, I know I could be heard, but we're working on it. It's definitely on his end, and the crappy part about this one is I'm not going to be able to send this one to my radio stations. That's the crappy part, because this is a good show. This is a very good show. And, his information is top notch, but we got to be able to hear him. We'll get there. Hi, Kira. How are you? Thank you for joining us this evening, my beautiful friend. And who else is joining us here? Look at Dirty Filth. That man knows how to use a paintbrush like anything. I think at one point Dirty Filth actually painted makeup on runway models. That's what I believe. I don't think I'm wrong either. In fact, he did the makeup for Right Said Fred's I'm Too Sexy video. Nonetheless, Susie B., how are you? Thanks for coming on in. Prairie Fire, it's been a while. How you been doing? Where you been hiding? Well, we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Here we go. He's trying to connect. All right. How you doing, Frank?
Sound better? Yeah, it's just
Yeah. I don't know what's going on there, though, brother.
I've
Somebody
got no
hates
idea.
it.
Yeah.
Somebody hates
What we could do, if it still goes on to the next break, what I could do is I could try logging on with my phone. Maybe it's the computer. I'm not sure. It shouldn't be because I just had it fixed.
Yeah, well, we'll try that. Let's just continue on here for the time being for our podcast and YouTube side, because I honestly didn't catch barely a word you said the last time when I asked you about the agendas and the money involved, and is this more about being the first up in space than anything else? If you want to continue with that.
Sure, I'd say the objective. Anybody who's in these programs, these dark programs, the objective is to develop the technology to be able to, as Dr. Eric Davis said, be able to, approximate the 5 observables. Because whoever has that can basically write their own ticket with the U.S. military. They would still continue to sell the older platforms, both the US military and its allies, because the US military, just like with F-35 and F-22, the US military can't afford to buy as much as it wants of those particular platforms. So what do? They have more updated F-15s to operate alongside those 5th generation platforms. So I think the ultimate aim for these people who control these programs is to be able to deploy these technologies with the US military, because they will get money beyond their dreams if they can give that advantage to the US military.
Well, we all know Nick Pope's agenda. I mean, that seems to be what describing Nick Pope to a T right there when you say that.
Sorry, what do you mean, Dave? Elaborate on that.
Oh, you know what? I'm very sarcastic when it comes to Nick Pope, any chance I get, because, it just seems like he's getting paid a lot of money from media outlets as a source, and all he ever does is quote anything that everybody else says and never quotes anything from himself. He doesn't have an original thought.
I don't know. I mean, I get on quite well with Nick. I think he comes out with some. He's got an interesting kind of like former government perspective, and I quite like the books that he's written over the years. But yeah, I mean, I think fair play to the guy if he can make money off it. And
well, we'll agree to disagree on that one, my friend. But nonetheless, okay. you are sounding beautiful right now. Is it about aliens anymore? Is it about the alien agenda? Is it about being visited, or is it way more than that right now?
Well, I'm not sure what we mean by aliens. If we mean alien as in non-human, then yes. I'm not really sure whether I've come away from the extraterrestrial hypothesis, although I still believe that's very possible. So it's really, I think they could come from multiple sources. I don't think they necessarily have to come from one source, although the truth is I don't know. But I think in terms of the agendas, it's the national security imperative of not knowing what we're dealing with, and being prepared potentially to deal with the threat. And I'm not saying that in all cases intelligences behind UAP represent a threat, nor do I think that in all cases that they are here to help us, as some people suggest. So I think there's a range of different objectives. I mean, part of it is on the part of people who have access to these technologies and want to develop them. I think there's a range of different objectives, from the national security to making money, and also as well, let's not forget, I mean, a lot of nefarious things have happened over the years, right? To keep suppression and to keep the lid on UFO UAP knowledge, including people being murdered. And in my research, I've delved into that. If you look over the years, a number of people closely related to the UFO topic have died in very, very weird circumstances. And I've delved into this kind of darker aspect of it. And also as well, I mean, apart from those really nefarious activities, the fact that a lot of the illegality will have been carried out over the years. So you have the possibility, for example, to majorly upset stock prices, because if things do come out in the wash with congressional hearings, then one company that has had access to these technologies and suddenly makes a breakthrough, okay, so then they may end up with a whole load of litigation from other companies because of unfair competition and the fact that these other companies were denied access to that technology. So I think that's another aspect of the illegality of what has happened. Quite aside from the issue of lying to Congress, hiding these activities from Congress, and also in other countries as well, not just in the United States, but in the United Kingdom as well, hiding what's really going on, which I think you have to find a balance between what is good for a healthy democracy, and that is your elected lawmakers having oversight of these programs, and on the other side, the security imperative of not having this information leak out that can assist your enemies. So I think there's a range of different factors at play here.
Okay, you mentioned about not lying to Congress and trying to be transparent while secretive at the same time, which I can understand. So then what is your take on NASA, who is playing absolutely stupid and dumb in front of the public? Is this just a ruse? Or is this all part of their own agenda where they don't want to admit anything, like astronauts and UFOs being recorded on every flight from Gemini on forward?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Dave. I mean, there's a lot that NASA knows, and for people like us who've delved into it, and we know that astronauts have seen things, multiple astronauts, and people who know, who worked at NASA, who've seen some of the imagery, and had to alter some of the imagery as well. So we know that NASA's sitting on a lot more than they let on. So I think there's two factors there. One, NASA is sitting on that information until it sees kind of which way the political wind is blowing, in terms of how much leverage Congress effectively achieves over the disclosure of UFO materials. And on the other hand, NASA requires a budget. NASA requires increasing relevance. So they want to keep their hand in on UAP, because it's kind of like the next big thing, right? And so budgets are going to be dependent upon that as well. So they want to muscle in on the action and make sure that they're up to date and relevant as other agencies are.
Okay, I understand that. But when you are literally going in front of the public and playing them for fools, is that just arrogance, or is that all part of their own personal agenda in this field?
I think it's both. And hopefully, as with the next Financial Intelligence Authorization Act comes into law, and the Defense Authorization Act, with all the new amendments and really tightening the screws, I hope that then Congress has already indicated its displeasure with how the DoD have been managing things in terms of UAP research. So hopefully the screws will be tightened, and then NASA, just like everybody else, will have to fall into line, and they will have to disclose what they know before members of Congress. But I think at the moment, they can still play dumb, because Congress hasn't quite got to that point where it has total leverage over them.
Is it total leverage as we get ready to go to break here, or is it total understanding? Frank, we'll get your answer when we come back for hour number 2 on Spaced Out Radio. Franc Milburn here. We are having a great show with him tonight. Seems like we got the audio straightened out, and we are going to ask him, is it leverage? Is it disclosure? Is it confirmation? All next on Spaced Out Radio.
I think I figured out what it is, Dave, what it might be.
Oh, what is it?
My local area network line, it doesn't plug straight into the computer. It uses like this crappy USB adapter, and that might have been it. like it's not connecting properly because of the USB adapter. So I just binned it and I put it on Wi-Fi.
Beautiful. You are a hero and a scholar all rolled into one.
Thanks, mate. You too. You too.
Oh, man.
Great conversation tonight. I mean, I really like exploring these areas.
Well, we'll get into it a little bit deeper here for hour number 2. But first, I'm going to turn the camera over to our main man, Dirty Filth here, who could show off his little artwork. He'll turn his mic on. And Frank, feel free to ask Dirty about his art or anything you want there, buddy. I'll be right back.
Yeah, what's actually developing there, Dirty?
Well, we got Man in Black, and we got a gray alien and a reptilian. I hope my audio is good.
Yeah.
If not, well, not much you can do about it. Nonetheless, the gray alien and the reptile are standing there, and the gray alien's telling the Man in Black, the humans have your game figured out.
Ah, okay.
Put it a little closer, and they're at the ye old meeting spot, but that'll all get drawn in later on. It looks like garbage now, but eventually it looks a lot better once it's all colored in and I ink it all up.
No, not at all. I've just been watching, like, in kind of fascination, like wondering what's developing before me. Is that watercolor you're using?
Yes, watercolor.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's got nice kind of soft tones to it.
I kind of call it the cheating paint because I'm not really good at coloring, but I can just put the water down and it does all the work for me. So I always say that. So it's.
Do you ever use oils as well?
Sometimes I use oils, but that's for just larger paintings, and I don't really have enough time for that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
But I like acrylic. That's one of my favorites.
Okay.
But overall, watercolor is my one of my top mediums to use.
Gotcha. Are you in Canada as well?
I am in Canada as well.
Fantastic.
I live in Alberta, and Dave lives in the mountainous caverns of BC, and I live on the flatlands.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm in Spain, in the Canary Islands. So I still marvel at modern technology. I mean, I can remember the days long before, I can remember like the early mobile phones.
It's pretty weird now. I'm not the biggest technology guy, and I had to, when I first started drawing cartoons, I had just this rudimentary setup, and sort of it's slowly evolving and it's getting better. And actually, the first couple times I came on the show beforehand, I was just sweating bullets at everything, and going to Mrs. Filth. I'm like, love her, I'm just dying here. She's like, you'll be fine. I'm like, I swear I'm sweating. And she's like, you're not even going to be on the show. They don't have to even show your face or anything. But yeah, it was pretty terrifying. But you overcome that shyness after a while, and it works out pretty good.
How did you come to the UFO topic, let alone start painting it?
Oh, geez. When I was a kid in elementary school, or I'm not sure what the equivalent is in the UK or the States, but when everybody's reading books about big red dogs or like magic school buses and things like that, I was always fascinated in like Sasquatch and aliens and ghosts and things like that. I think it was my grandmother who used to watch Unsolved Mysteries and things like that when I was young, and I'd fake being sick and go over to her house, and she'd let me stay up all late and everything, and I just kind of got into it, and I've sort of always followed UFOs and Sasquatch and just cryptids and weird things like that forever, and it's always been in my heart. And I drew a cartoon one day and I sent it. I messaged Dave and I went, hey, would you like to have this drawing? He goes, really? And I go, did Bob Bigelow and Skinwalker Ranch? He goes, hell yeah, he did. And so I mailed him a drawing, and now I draw cartoons on the show.
Yeah, I think a lot of us come at the topic from basically a lifetime of interest in it. It's quite. I mean, some people have come to it, fairly recently, and good on them as well. I always find it very heartening when people have just come to the UAP topic, literally like in the last 6 months or the last year. I find that very heartening, and I think it's just great seeing greater acceptance of it. And I'm not just talking about like in the media, but from ordinary people, because I think that's where it's important.
Definitely. When I work in a warehouse normally, and when I talk to drivers and everything, I always mention aliens or something. I always just got to get it in there somehow. And a lot of people, they always seem to go, hey, one time, like, don't think I'm crazy, but I swear I've seen these lights. And I go, oh, tell me about it. And next thing you know, I got this story from this truck driver guy or something. And you could say, yeah, he's just a truck driver, but I mean, everybody has these experiences or encounters. And if I can ever just connect with somebody for a couple minutes and talk about it, then that's pretty cool.
Looking good, Dirty.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, it's looking good. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. I appreciate the kind words.
We have about 30 seconds. Thank you, Cat Chaser, Science Bob, John, Lala Bob, again, and Dennis for the amazing super chats. And thank you all for your love and support. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and it really helps with our algorithms if you put a comment after the show. So we really appreciate it. And we're going to go from here, guys. We got about 5 seconds, so just sit tight because here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Telerik. Telerik is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Here we go. Franc Milburn is here, former intelligence officer looking into the UFO phenomena. We are talking about the agendas that are going on around the world right now. And Frank, thank you so much for getting up early in the United Kingdom to join us tonight here on the West Coast of North America.
Thank you too, Dave.
Right before the break, we were asking you about the agenda of everything. What is the purpose? What is the point? Is it disclosure? Is it confirmation? I don't think that the word disclosure is a popular term with me right now, because I do believe that there is no such thing. Disclosure is opening up the books, letting us know everything from, say, Roswell as a starting point on up to what is happening today. But we are not seeing that whatsoever. There's still a lot of cover-ups going on. What is your opinion, Frank, on whether we are in disclosure or confirmation?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I agree. I mean, 100% of what you just said, Dave. I always have a problem with the word disclosure, and of course, then you always get people who go, well, there's already been disclosure. If you look at the hearings, and you look at countries like the UK, Spain, New Zealand, Australia, that have declassified some UFO files. But I think it's more about clarification. It's about how deep we go into it. As you kind of mentioned, it's about how deep we get to the information. Because even if you look at, like, for example, I live in Spain, so I look quite a lot at the Spanish UFO files that were released between, say, like 1967 and 1994, and those files are classified as secret, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be like higher classified files that aren't released. And for example, if you look at Project Condign in the UK, so you had all these British UFO documents released, but they still have redacted a lot out. For example, like the radar, anything that could indicate the performance characteristics, for example, of British radars. So and you saw that as well with the NDA, the Office of the Director of Intelligence and UAPTF report last year, that even the the classified version that John Greenwald got hold of, it's still, redacted quite a lot in areas. So I think it's clarification and getting as much as we can out of it. So I don't think for the government it's about a process of disclosure. I think for the government it's about managing to release as little of it as possible. If we're talking specifically in the United States, I think that in Congress, I think genuinely the people there believe in as much transparency as you can have in government, rule of law, a healthy kind of democracy. But they're going to want to, and they've directed in the legislation that's ongoing. They want to know about all the cover-ups since 1947. They've said that people whose people's NDAs won't be affected if they come forward effectively and whistleblow. So I think that they genuinely, the lawmakers in the US, want to have as much public transparency as possible as part of a healthy democracy. I think that those who sit on the information that Congress wants to get back to, then they don't want that process, obviously, at all.
No, and I can understand the reason why. I mean, let's face it, this is still an upsetting world, okay? We're not a peaceful world. We're not a comfortable world. We're still into this old school of who can we bomb next? Who is our next target? And so on and so forth. And I understand the fact that, if your two main biggest countries in the world, in China and Russia, are not playing ball, then you can't just let everything out of the bag. I think we can all understand that. However, I don't agree with the idea that when you have something that can affect every person on this planet, from those still living on the jungle to those in the concrete jungles around the world, you're playing with fire. You're playing with a lot of people's lives, not just your own. And to me, that goes beyond security, because if all of a sudden some sort of extraterrestrial force or civilization decides to land here, people are going to panic. People are going to go crazy because they're not going to know what is going on because the government hasn't told them. That's a dangerous precedent.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you on that. And I think, as with that sort of great clip that you played at the beginning of the show with Ronnie Reagan, I think that were such an overwhelming and kind of non-human presence to make itself felt, that there would be sort of major eruptions potentially, and that it would effectively make, our traditional view of international relations and the sovereignty of states and the competition between those states, in military, economic, technological terms, it would make that all irrelevant, because that fact of this interaction or this reality of a UFO reality would mean that we'd have to pull together, especially if that reality were in some way hostile or threatened to completely, maybe not hostile, but so overwhelming that it would threaten to subsume our identity as human beings effectively. I'm not just the realization that we're not the top of the technological food chain, but in terms of just completely shaking up everything about our lives and about our future. So I think that kind of level of reality, and I don't want to use the word disclosure, that level of reality would really make the major power competition irrelevant in big terms, in kind of cosmic terms.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the issues that I have with everything is, where's the transparency in that? Where's the comfortability that even our own governments have our backs on this? It's almost like the way I feel, if these aliens that come here, or whatever species comes here, is hostile, to me, it almost seems like myself, my family, my friends, my fellow citizens are going to be the ones who are the sacrificial lambs, rather than those who are, trying to, hold the secrets for their own benefit. We really don't know, Frank. And that's what's scary about it all, because when you only have a handful of people who are controlling the entire agenda, I just don't see how we can allow that to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a good sort of parallel argument to that is, for example, a good comparison rather, is, how would the major powers of the world react were there a major, kind of physical threat from space, whether it's like some kind of sunspot that's going to fry, all of our, electrical grids and all our technology and push us back into the Stone Age and cause billions to die off, or whether it's like a meteor shower that's going to start hitting the Earth and, potentially, do like a reset of what happened to the dinosaurs, right? So, would the powers would terrestrial powers faced with that kind of threat, would they still continue to like use nukes against each other, like Putin has recently done, threatening use of nukes over Ukraine, or 6 months ago China was kind of like saber rattling with Japan, saying, oh well, you already know what it's like to experience atomic war because it's happened to you. So would we be threatening each other, or would we actually be pulling together and trying to stop the planet from being destroyed? I keep an open mind as to that, but I think maybe the immediacy of our destruction would make our own squabble seem pretty petty and insignificant by comparison.
It very much would, seem very petty, but that's all we know, though. And when you're hiding the secrets, when you're not keeping the public available, like I asked Elizondo last time he was on this show, in regards to COVID, was the ATIP program or the UAP task force, whatever name they are going by at the time, watching the reactions of humanity during COVID? And he admitted that they were, because they needed to be able to study how people would react over a mass pandemic or something along those lines, and how could they translate that into some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence coming down on this planet. And he said there was show of concern by many people who were studying this regarding the idea of how people were hoarding, how people were treating each other, how people were rushing to the grocery store, hoarding food, even though there was no food shortage. There was so much panic and irresponsibility going on that I think it opened the eyes to the people who may have a say and said, guys, should we really be doing this? Should we really be opening up this Pandora's box? Because I'm running out of toilet paper and I cannot find any anywhere at any corner store or supermarket.
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think along those terms that you've outlined as well, I think that that part of the disclosure, or the kind of opening up process, might be to prepare the American public and publics in general across the world for the possibility of some non-human reality that is interacting with us in a major way, whether it's abductions or something else. Because there is a necessity to do so. Now, going a bit out there, that I've spoken on quite a lot of podcasts about the future human hypothesis. Well, maybe there is some interaction with others from wherever or whenever they are from that the US government and other governments are aware of, but they just don't have a handle on. And so therefore there is a necessity to inform the public, whether it's about some impending disaster or some massive paradigm shifting change that is going to completely change our reality and our understanding of, where we are in the universe and where we are in the kind of, the technological pecking order. So I believe that may be a factor in push for disclosure, whereas some people will think, yes, the public, need to be informed, whereas on the other side, it's like, no, we need to keep a lid on it because otherwise there will be mass panic and, government will be increasingly irrelevant because, government exists to provide effectively protection to its citizens, at least in a democracy. And I think the other issue for that, I think that will be maybe more threatening as well for maybe authoritarian states like Russia and China that develop that predicate their rule on, use of force and the legitimacy of kind of one ruling party or one group of elites. But I think generally it will be threatening to Western democracies as well if the government itself is seen to become irrelevant in the light of this greater reality. So then if the government becomes irrelevant, then you have a breakdown in law and order, you have a breakdown in social cohesion, So I think that's maybe very, very frightening to some people who are sitting on these secrets.
Yeah, I very much agree with you on that. But what is the dangers? What would be the danger, Frank, in your mind of, let's say, the U.S. government opening up the idea that disclosure is real, that there is another civilization out there that is more technologically advanced, that is preparing to come to Earth? What is the danger you see in that?
Well, I mean, imagine, if the U.S. government or another government, openly said, well, actually, yeah, there's like hundreds of thousands of abductions occurring, yearly in the United States, even more across the world, and citizens who expect to have a modicum of security in their own country are being taken against their will and having nasty things done to them by kind of some technologically superior advanced civilization. And sorry, but we as your government were powerless to do anything about it. I mean, that's a pretty serious state of affairs.
Okay, but let me flip that on you.
Okay.
What if it's more about hiding the secrets that they already have? Whether it is aliens, alien technology, whether it is crash retrievals, whether it's alien bodies or alive aliens or an alien connection, or maybe the Eisenhower story from 1954 is correct, where he traded technology for human abductions, for study for the ETs. I mean, is this more a concern than what we may even realize?
I think that could very well be the case. I think that, and the kind of covering up of not just the UFO kind of reality, but also the role that people have played within the cover up of that reality, including all the kind of nefarious activities and deaths of prominent people involved in the field. So I think it could be a mixture of all those things. I think so much has been done, illegally to cover up the reality, that it's now very, very different. There's a quote from the Scottish play Macbeth, when Macbeth is talking about whether he's going to commit more murders or not, and he said, "I'm in blood stepped in so far that should I wade no more, returning were as tedious as go were." There's so much that's been done already. Maybe it's easier for them to continue going on the way they go than to trying to unpick all the years and years of nefarious activities and account for their actions.
Well, and that makes me wonder why they won't open up to Roswell. Because if they lose that control, they're not going to be able to get it back.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, the new legislation, which is being proposed, I mean, it's, saying go back to 1947 and inform us of all the, kind of the deception operations that have been carried out to cover up, the knowledge about UFOs. And also, all the programs and all the programs that have been, studying UFOs as well. And then, offering the chance for whistleblowers, not to be penalized, reference their NDAs. So I think that kind of unpicking of, this kind of sordid history of the UFO cover-up, it may not be long in coming to be unpicked, if you can see what I'm saying. So I think that the kind of world that these people operate in, it's kind of like draining the swamp, and these people who are desperately trying to maintain, the cover up of the UFO reality, slowly, their kind of swamp is being drained. Their room for maneuver is being drained as the legislation slowly kind of like tightens up, tightens up the nut, as it were, and like starts squeezing them more and more and more. But at the same time, I still don't doubt the ability of these people to maintain kind of opaqueness, because they've had 7.5 decades to do so. So I'm, and also as well, if you do know a lot about a particular program, okay, maybe you're not so much worried about being penalized for breaking your NDA. Maybe you're worried about literally being killed because you know too much. So I think there's still a possibility for obfuscation.
All right, let's get some audience questions here. And we're going to start off with Jonathan and a bunch from him. Frank, who would be doing the crash retrievals, and have the Brits been involved?
I would say reference the Brits, I can neither confirm nor deny on crash retrievals. That's just because of my own background.
Right.
But
okay.
Who would be doing crash retrievals in the States? I think two possibilities. One would be private corporations using former special operations command types, and there's plenty of those on the market. The type of people specifically would be former tier 1 operators, Air Force special operations type, because I mean they're actually the perfect candidates, because I mean they train for retrieval of craft and sensitive material and aircrew behind enemy lines and in contested space, whether it's land or sea. And I think also from the U.S. government point of view, the U.S. government would use, and the British government would use effectively special operations teams to effect crash retrievals, because they have the expertise necessary to do that. But I think at the moment in the U.S., I think that Congress would probably know about it if the U.S. military were doing it. So I would tend to think that it's more in the hands of some private group or some as yet hidden away UFO program that is conducting the crash retrievals.
Speaking of agendas, NORAD definitely has one, and Jonathan wants to know, how do we get NORAD's uncorrelated track data to be released?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it's not foyable because of the Canadian involvement. I think that then maybe you'd have to have some whistleblower from the Canadian side who has worked at NORAD and has access to the information, but I very much doubt there would be a whistleblower there. I think the only way that would happen would be if the American government and the Canadian government agreed to have that data released to the public.
All right, let's continue on with audience questions here. This one comes from Jesse, and we got about 90 seconds, just over that. What questions do we need to be asking is the question. What is too deep that they can't tell us? I feel like the aliens told them something about death because this body is just a vessel.
Yeah, truth is, in a nutshell, I don't know. But there might be something very, very nefarious. The US government either doesn't know, or they do know a truth that's simply so worrying that they don't want to put it out there to the public. That, for example, hundreds of thousands of people are being abducted, nasty things are being done to them. There are, others, living in our society and living amongst us, and they look just like us, and we don't know who they are. We can be swatted by like flies militarily any time that they want to, or that there are invisible entities operating around us that can change our perceptions, that can zap our dogs, that can exsanguinate cattle, and that can basically change people's perceptions. So I think that would really put the zap on most people's heads.
All right, great answer. All right, let's continue on. Let's sneak one more in here. Let's go to applesauce. I actually really like this question. What's more powerful, military or rich people?
Well, I think that's a kind of open-ended question, because, and it really depends, also as well which society you're in. But I mean, rich people always effectively can exert political power, directly or indirectly. I mean, look at Trump. He used his money to run for office. Okay, but if you're talking in terms of obviously pure military power, then military people are more powerful. But military people are subject, to the rules and laws of the state in which they operate, and which is effectively their political leadership. Whether that is whether that were in an authoritarian state, or whether that were in a democratic state.
Frank, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. We have more audience questions for you. Franc Milburn here. The agendas of ufology is what we're talking about. We got them till the top of the hour on Spaced Out Radio. We continue the UFO talk right after this. Flying on by, my friend. Flying on by.
Yeah, man, it goes so quickly, doesn't it, when you're having fun?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. We do have more audience questions coming in, but it's dirty filth time. Let's see. It looks like we got an alien, a reptilian, a man in black, and some sort of alien speech that'll be in the bubble above.
Yeah, it's too bright right now. You're just gonna have to be patient, Dave.
I don't like being patient.
Yeah.
So did you play forward or defense in hockey?
Me?
Yeah.
Both. In my younger days, I was forward. At my end days, I was defense.
Is that ice hockey, guys?
Yes. Yes. That's what it is.
I have to say, ice hockey is one of the most exciting sports to watch. I think, anyway.
It used to be. I mean, it's a great game, but it's nowhere where it was. It's they've made it more like soccer on ice rather than allowing the players and the physicality of the game to dictate where the game goes and how it turns out.
Well,
and I think
so
really
they've reduced the brutality of it, or
they reduced the brutality of it, and I don't agree with that. The brutality of it was the fun part, you know.
Yeah, but was it a lot of people getting injured though? That's why they did it, or
I think there's more people getting injured now,
right?
Because what you've done, or what they have done, is they've put the law, like when hockey was in its heyday, never mind the 1970s and all the goon hockey of the Broad Street Bullies and all that, but back in the day, as players, we policed ourselves. Yes, there was a referee and two linesmen there, but our job was to protect ourselves. So for instance, Frank, I mean, I can tell you times where you know you get a player who would say slash your goalie with his stick, right? Well, a goaltender is defenseless, so somebody like me would have to come around and you know maybe cross check the guy in the face or give him a punch when the referees weren't looking, and you'd tell him, hey, you know, this is stuff you don't pull. Like, don't be stupid. Otherwise, you know, we got to kick your ass. And that was good enough. That's where, you know, it really, you policed yourselves. And, you know, I mean, it's like that old saying, there's honor among thieves, you know? And what we would do is we would, you know, take care of our own. But over the last 15, 20 years where they've, you know, put in a secondary referee and they're making just the most brain dead penalty calls. I mean, it's terrible now. You know, you got all these players who are supposed to be playing the toughest game in the league or in the world that are, you know, every time that they take a little tap on their shin pads, they're going down like they've just been shot like Reagan in an assassination attempt, you know, and it's not becoming of what hockey is. It really isn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like with rugby, right? In the UK, Europe, and around the world. I mean, in rugby, you know, they still smack the hell out of each other, and it's very, very physical. But by and large, you know, the crowds are very calm, and it's like a family event. Whereas if you look at soccer, you know, like the tiniest tap and the bloke's falling over like he's got a broken leg, and then the crowds are kicking off sometimes. So I don't know.
Oh, very true. Very, very true. We'll get back to the UFO talk here in about 30 seconds. Thank you to Science Bob for 5 super chats tonight. Lala, John, Dennis, and Cat Chaser. Thank you so much for the love. And we're going to get going here in about 20 seconds. and then we will make things happen. All right, here we go, everyone. Excuse me. Dirty Filth, we're going to move you back into your corner, and we got about 10 seconds until we're going to get going. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. We very much appreciate it. I want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Okay, we have until the top of the hour our good friend Franc Milburn, former intelligence agent and currently ufologist and literally a scholar of everything going on in the world right now. We're glad to have him here. Frank, thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers, Dave.
Cheers back. Couple of audience questions that we are going to get to. Jonathan wants to know, what is your personal best assessment of what we are encountering, Frank?
Oof. That's a great question from John. In a nutshell, I don't know. I used to be sort of very nuts and bolts orientated at first. I'm really not sure now if it's a phenomenon or multiple phenomena that are somehow linked somehow, or are actually completely separate entities. Are we looking at extraterrestrials? Are we looking at time travelers? Are we looking at ultra terrestrials, beings that have been on, entities that have been on Earth maybe longer than we are? I really don't know. My personal belief is that we are encountering multiple different entities from maybe all of the above different categories that I mentioned. So also we could see a combination thereof. I mean, we could be seeing time traveling extraterrestrials, time traveling ultra terrestrials. It's my mind and my imagination are both wide open.
All right, let's continue on. Steam Gnome is asking, have they already functionally lost control, they being the government, and now just frantic failing of damage control?
Well, if we look in terms of, control of, low Earth orbit, control of our skies, control of our oceans, then clearly the government, whether it's the UK government or the US government, clearly they don't have control, because these objects are entering our space, our airspace, and our, surface and subsurface areas with impunity. So it may very well be, a damage control assessment, especially if there is a kind of much deeper knowledge of a reality of others that the government is just too worried about the general public finding out, or elements of the government thereof, I should say. But the truth is, I don't know, because I'm not right on the inside.
Right, fully understand. And let's go to another question here. Jules would like to know, Frank, do you think the U.S. hid the UFO proof in the NOAA?
Are we talking, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Julian. Thanks for that. I think with NOAA, it's going to be a case of they know that there's a lot more going on because of all their very sensitive equipment. And I visited actually a base in Spain, which is does oceanography and which actually operates buoys in conjunction with NOAA. I believe it's a case of like NOAA being in a similar position to NASA. There's a lot more that they know and a lot more that they're sitting on.
Very intriguing indeed. Okay, Frank, let's continue on with some audience questions. Kaiju is asking, do you believe England has its own Roswell event and Area 51?
Well, Area 51, they say that the McRae base in Scotland was certainly an area 51 of the UK. That's what it was termed. I was actually at that base in the early 90s, although nothing to do with UAP, but working with basically doing NATO exercises from there. As for a Roswell event, I would certainly say I can't speak to crash retrievals, but I would equate the Rendlesham Forest episode as a kind of a UK Roswell event in terms of its magnitude and in terms of its contact with craft that came on multiple occasions and basically affected not only the humans that they came into contact with, but were also extremely interested in the nuclear weapon storage areas. So I would say that is a big event, and also a Roswell type event in terms of the general commanding United States Air Force Europe actually came over and kind of headed up an investigation there. So I mean that's pretty major when you've got the top U.S. Air Force officer getting involved in an investigation of what went down there.
Franc Milburn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Let's go to another question here. This one from Mennonite Abe. What is the truth about the Calvine UFO hikers? Why the secrecy about their identity? And is that excuse to hide the remaining photos?
In a nutshell, I don't know. It's not really my bag. I really don't know anything about the hitchhikers. I mean, it was 30 years ago, right? So I mean, they could even be dead by now, or else kind of like maybe into advanced age. I just really don't know enough about it to give an intelligent answer.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Let's continue on here. Mr. Steam Gnome is asking. No, he's not asking that. Let's go to, Mr. Steam Gnome. Whom is disclosure in the hands of? Us, as in humans, or them, as in the ETs?
That's a really good question. I think if you look at sort of the interaction of intelligence behind UAP, sometimes they're quite happy to be seen. Whether it's flying around like the Nimitz carrier strike group, they don't seem to be that bothered about being seen, and millions of people have seen them. Sometimes then they use their signature management, right? So low observability, cloaking, and they don't want to be seen. They certainly haven't officially anyway made an announcement to the UN or the US government or any other government about what their intentions are and what they want to do. So we don't know. So if they were to appear tomorrow, like on the White House lawn, then I would say, yeah, disclosure is very much in their hands. But I don't see any evidence that UAP have, or intelligences behind UAP have directly tried to announce this on a kind of mass scale to humankind. So I would have to say disclosure is in the hands of major world governments, assuming that they know a lot more about what they're not telling us about the UFO reality.
Straight up answers from Franc Milburn here on Spaced Out Radio. Let's go back to Kaiju. Frank, do you believe there is a UFO and Bigfoot connection?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, if we look at Skinwalker, it seems to be that there's all kind of like weird cryptids in the same vicinity as UAP, UFO activity, and also kind of poltergeist type activity. So whereas a few years ago I would never have thought of kind of like Bigfoot and UFOs in kind of the same breath. Now I keep a totally open mind to it, but I have to give the proviso. Look, I'm not a Bigfoot expert, so.
Me either. Me either. I just go out in the forest and look for the damn thing. Let's go to Nicole. Would Frank like to pilot or jump out of a UAP UFO?
Yeah, I think jumping days are long over, and I'm actually scared of heights, right? Which is the truth. Why I used to jump out of airplanes, I don't know, but I'm actually not big on heights. I would certainly like to fly in a UAP, if not pilot one. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think you'd be crazy not to. It'd be like the ultimate adventure.
Jonathan is asking, Frank, what are your thoughts on my labs?
Military abductions. Well, actually, you could argue that military abductions have already been going on, because if you look at like Extraordinary Rendition, where you're basically grabbing terror suspects, or who you assume to be terror suspects, off the streets of Europe and other places, and then rendering them to a CIA dark site. You could argue that military abductions are a real phenomenon. In terms of the military abducting people who've been in contact with UAP, I don't have any firm evidence of it, but I would imagine in the United States, I mean, it would be a major scandal if you found out that members of the armed forces or a military unit, if they were actually abducting their own citizens. I would think that if it were a my lab, it would be more in terms of maybe a private aerospace company, with their own kind of like private army of special operators doing that. That's just an opinion.
Do you think we're going to learn more about these my labs coming out? Is that one of the fears of disclosure?
Well, I think that might be one of the kind of nefarious activities that could very well be one of the nefarious activities that's been going on for the last 70 years or the last 7.5 decades, carried out by maybe a secretive UAP programs, like a dark recess part of the government. Excuse me, or from a private aerospace and defense company. So I think that is a potential concern. Yes, that is one cat that they don't want to let out of the bag. So excuse me.
That is quite okay. Quite okay. Let's get to another question here on the show tonight, and I believe it's coming from Nicole, who is asking, Frank, is there a UK version of the alleged MJ-12?
I really don't know, Nicole, is the short answer. I do believe that there is a lot more that the UK government is not saying. For example, in the Project Condign report, although it was quite forthright in some cases, it said, for example, there's never been an attempted intercept by RAF aircraft in the UK. Well, we know that Captain Milton Torres, right, in 1957, was ordered to intercept UAP, and there are other cases as well. So I personally believe that there's a lot more that the UK government is not saying. If you're talking about an MJ-12, so you're assuming that there's a group that controls UK knowledge of the UFO reality. I would think, there's probably a group that coordinates with their colleagues and close allies in the United States. But I've got no proof of that. But for me, it would be the logical thing to do. If you wanted to keep a lid on this reality, you would have to have somebody who knows what they're doing in terms of being able to keep a lid on it. But I don't think that it extends to the same extent as the US does, in terms of the deep entrenchment of those trying to keep UFO reality from the public, as in the US, which I think it's very, very firmly entrenched there.
All right, let's continue on here. And back to Jonathan. Frank, do you have any idea what Zodiac is? Luis Elizondo won't discuss it.
Yeah, I'm not really up on that, to be honest.
Short, sweet, and beautiful. That's all I got to say. Jonathan, again, he's firing away here. Is DI-55 still operating? What is DI-55?
Yeah, DI-55 was basically the branch of UK Defence Intelligence, right? Who I used to work for. I was in Army Intelligence, but it was all part of a. It's all been rolled into Defence Intelligence for the tri services. DI-55 was a section of defense intelligence that looked at kind of like exotic technologies, and also it looked at UAP. And the Condon report that was released in 2000, the one that said, the fact that UAP are a reality, exist, is indisputable. That was a DI-55 report. To be honest, I'm not sure if they're still operating, but my personal belief is that despite what the UK government is saying about UAP and not being that interested in it, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't some section of defense intelligence looking into it.
All right, let's continue on. Let's go to Sovereign here. Frank, can you tell us about human mutilation cases like Aztec, New Mexico?
I don't know much about. I don't know really enough about human mutilation cases. I know they've occurred. I keep an open mind. I think if there's been cattle mutilations, then why not human mutilations? I certainly find it very disturbing, because if you can mutilate like a 200-pound cow, and exsanguinated, and there's no traces whatsoever, and it looks like the cadaver's been dropped from a great height. Well, if you can do that to a large cow, you can certainly do that to a human being. So I find that pretty disturbing. But then again, if you put that in perspective, I mean, is that anything worse than what human beings have done to each other over the centuries, and what we do to other species, and what we do to the planet? So I mean, in sort of like moralistic terms, are we any better than those who are doing cattle mutilations or human mutilations in terms of what human beings have done to each other and to other species?
Very true. Franc Milburn is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Kira. Frank, what do you think about the recent CERN activity, and what's it all about? Any supporting evidence to opening dimensions?
Don't know enough about it, to be honest.
Short and sweet once again. That's why we love him. If he doesn't have the answer, he doesn't get it. We are caught up on audience questions for right now, Frank, as we continue on here on Spaced Out Radio. Frank, the mysteries that are going on, do you think there is a correlation between allied governments or NATO or somebody along that line, and what can be discussed and what cannot be discussed regarding UFOs?
Yeah, I think very much so. Especially like, in the context of, like the Five Eyes, the Australia, Canada, USA, UK, and New Zealand. I think there's very much coordination. I know from my own days in intelligence and in the military that there's coordination basically at all levels, from, the kind of tactical level, the operational level, to the strategic level. There's always like, Brits embedded with Americans. And, for example, an instructor on one of my intelligence courses was an embedded Australian intelligence instructor. So at all levels, we're kind of like dug in with each other. I think that there's also been coordination between the United States and the former Soviet Union, if we believe what former Soviet naval officers and submariners have been saying, that in order to reduce kind of like risk of conflict between the United States and NATO in general and the former Soviet Union, that there was some kind of a sharing of knowledge about the reality of what the Russians called kvakas, or the unidentified submerged objects, which were affecting the military operations of both the Soviet Union and the United States.
Very true. Okay, so do you believe then that if there is this entire governmental world agenda going on through NATO, that is very limited on what we will ever see? I mean, you look at some of the promises we've been made, Frank. Elizondo, Mellon, and a bunch of the people talked about a 21-minute video that if we saw the video, we would never question UFOs again, or whether or not there's been contact. I mean, is that all part of the agenda? Is that all part of the cover-up? Does Britain know, or Spain know, or Brazil know what the U.S. government knows regarding crash retrievals and or ET contact?
I would think that with its closest allies, that they would. I mean, for example, there would be very close coordination. I mean, for example, Brazil is a major non-NATO ally, right, for the United States, and the Brazilians. There's cases where the U.S. government investigators have actually been in Brazil, assisting the Brazilians with cases of interaction with UAP and their occupants. So I think there is a very close coordination between close allies. I mean, you'd simply have to be just in terms of the national security implications, for example. I mean, if you're in Europe and the United States, for example, you'll have some bloke sitting at Creech Air Force Base in the United States, and he'll be able to see through NATO radars, he'll be able to see what's going on along the border with Russia, and he'll have access to all the NATO radars, right? So it's about deconfliction, about control of airspace. So I think that there has to be very close coordination.
All right, let's continue on here. Do you believe then that this is an American thing? That the U.S. has to take the full control of this? That we're not going to know what disclosure is until the Americans come out?
Yeah, I think there's kind of been American leadership of it for sure. I mean, unless China and the leadership of China and Russia come out with saying like, oh, we've got crashed retrievals and this is what we've been doing in terms of UAP research. But I don't see it coming out of those authoritarian regimes necessarily. I think we got a kind of glimpse of what was going on in the former Soviet Union, like in the early 90s, like when George Knapp went to Russia and got a load of information on the sort of Soviet era programs into UAP. But I think it's more likely to come in the environment of the United States, which is still the single preeminent world military power, and also as well because unlike in authoritarian regimes, Congress, the United States is able to put pressure on the executive branch and to compel sort of more openness. But how much openness they achieve, obviously, it remains to be seen.
Until this all comes down and we get what we want one way or another, what do you see happening? What do you see happening short term and long term? We got about 90 seconds left.
In terms of disclosure, Dave?
Yes. Yeah,
I mean, I'm probably less optimistic than some people that Congress is going to get the full story, but to use a certain expression that Richard Dolan uses, I'd say there's probably too much toothpaste out of the tube now to start squeezing back in. So even if you had a hiatus and an attempted rollback of the kind of opening up process, I think that people now are far too invested in it. And not just like the UFO community, but especially and more importantly, politicians and people in Congress. Although they may have short memories because of sort of current and upcoming political re-election requirements. But I think there's too much out of the bag now. I can't see it going backwards. It might not happen in the next couple of years, but I think it will happen eventually.
Awesome, my friend. How can people get in touch with you and find your information?
Yeah, sure. I'm on at Franc Milburn on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I use that a lot less. I'm also on LinkedIn. And if anybody's got like information that they want to share, I've got an email on my Twitter account as well, a Proton mail. But I really use that for discussion of like incidents and UFO events rather than kind of general discussions.
Well, Frank, we appreciate you going on here on Spaced Out Radio tonight. I do have a busy next hour coming up, but we're going to bring you back on here soon because I think what we're going to have to do is, as this starts to open up a little bit more, is get a great panel going that I'd like you to be a part of. So thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight, my friend.
Thank you very much, Dave. Great to be back on.
Always. Franc Milburn, everybody. Coming up next in hour 3, we're going to head to the swamp, and then the Cryptid Report. Robert McRae is here for Super Duke. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next. Stay tuned. Beautiful, my friend. Absolutely. Oh, he hung up. Absolutely beautiful. Dirty. I'm going to turn it over to you here for a minute. There we go. Dirty Filth, everyone. Power of
Dave
truth.
turned it over to Dirty Filth. Power of truth, because humans have figured your game out there, man in black. How's that working for you? At the old meeting spot, reptilian and the gray alien. Oh, look, it's Nicholas Shaughnessy, who spells his name correctly. But, yeah, there you go. That's pretty cool, I'd say so myself. Because everybody knows what they're up to. Well, at least most of the people. All the people that know, like us. Us weirdos that listen to weird shows about aliens and things like that. Pretty funny, filthy farter. That's some pretty decent alliteration there, Sovereign Cosmic Wildman. I try every RPG campaign. I always try to do at least one place with some good alliteration. Like the last one was Blixley Broomhandle from the Best Better Builders Business Bureau. I have not forgotten about the mantids. They're just they don't like to come out very often. So when I sneak out in the middle of the night, I take these pictures of these alien encounters and I come home and draw them. That's what I do. Yuck, yuck, yuck. But yeah, I'll ask for permission to draw a mantid next time, and I'll draw a mantid, hopefully. Maybe. They don't eat my brains first. That's exactly it. Seriously. Mr. Steam Gnome. You got to color everything first. It's terrible because when I draw my cartoon and all the lines and everything, I know exactly where I want to put the color, but I just can't put the color there. So I just add a little bit of extra thick line. That's why I got about 7,000 different flavors of my pens. No comment, Brown Dwarf. My favorite watercolor artist overall, my absolute favorite is Milo Manara, and he does the best watercolors in the world. But it's not safe for work because he draws ankles of cute ladies and things like that, so some people might not be appreciative of that. Maybe if Dave lets me sit around longer, I can draw a cartoon during the next half hour, or at least whip something up on the old random table. I have no idea how Dave keeps up with this stuff. It's insane. You guys are all awesome. Thanks for coming out and watch me draw cartoons and say nice things about them. Jokes of my art teacher back in the day. You never do anything with your art. Yeah, well, did she draw cartoons on Spaced Out Radio? Nope. Oh boy. I'm just rambling myself here. Nonetheless, though, whether Dave wants it or not, I'm just going to grab something and start doing more artwork because I'm getting bored staring at this crap and seeing it for the last hour or so. Wham! Somebody load me up on an idea of something to draw here. Cartoon the Muse. Flowers for Filthy. Oh, that's nice. Oh, the reptilian alien. He's just nodding. I just put like a little nod there. I'll show you. Ugh. Oh, there we go. That's nice. Oh God, hold it straight. Bloody hell. Humans have your game figured out. And so now the man in black, who basically is like the military police, of cryptids and everything, he just was out recently telling the California Nightcrawler to not steal pants from places, to go to the cryptid clothier. Bigfoot versus Dogman. Bigfoot's going to come away with like the overall win, but he'll probably die due to bleeding damage. That's what I figure. Kaiju Ninja. Brownies. Ooh, I remember brownies from Palladium RPGs. Those are rowdy. So yeah, there's that. Oh.
Looking good, Dirty.
Thanks, Dave. They got me rambling.
You are a rambler.
But I didn't swear or belch. So we're on a roll here.
That's a record.
So I was just figuring I'd just splatter some paint on the canvas while you do your next thing and whatnot.
All right. Well, we want to say,
at least, didn't we?
Oh yeah. We want to say thank you to Cat Chaser, Science Bob for 5, John, Lala, and Dennis for the amazing super chats tonight. Feeling very overwhelmed with the love and support, everyone. So thank you. And here we go with hour number 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Talaric. Talaric is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. It is time for us once again to head into the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller takes us on another spooky journey.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. Our cabin was an A-frame style cabin up against the woods and bordering the field separating us from the forest. Every night after campfire, we would just relax on the patio and watch the sunset until the staff came around and told us it was lights out. I've always had trouble sleeping in strange places, so I don't recall ever sleeping much at the camp. I even recall a couple times staying up all night because I needed to go to the bathroom, but was afraid of walking alone at night to the outhouse, and I didn't want to take my buddy or wake any of them up. As the days went on, I became more brave, eventually being brave enough to pee right outside the cabin door, just in case the monsters of little boys were ready to nab me off the front porch. I still think Josh was a large influence on why I don't fear the unknown as much as I used to. Whenever we did anything, he always found a way to spice it up and enrich the experience to make us more brave. The last night we were there, we played a large-scale game of hide-and-seek with the staff being the seekers and the campers and counselors hiding. I'd become sort of attached to Josh. He was like a cooler older brother. So, he put me in a tree and hid below the tree in a bush, and we never were found. The bell rang, signaling the end of the game, and to meet at the lodge to do a head count before returning to our cabins for the night. It was pitch black, but I was enthralled by how much fun I was having, and having seemed to conquer my fear of the dark in such a remote place. I wasn't the only one who felt this way. Kids were running alongside us, some even managing cartwheels with nothing more than a flashlight to guide their hands and feet across the ground. Josh must have been inspired by everyone having such fun, and he said he had an idea for the final night of camp. We all got to the lodge and everyone was accounted for. They made their standard, "This is the last night of camp, so treasure your time with your cabin mates and get phone numbers," speech before running through the rolls one last time. "Can we sleep outside tonight?" Josh asked, to which the answer was a solid no. We didn't get an honest explanation why. It was just against the rules. Josh didn't take no for an answer, and when we got back to the cabin, he insisted we do it anyway. Everyone agreed with him, and we formulated a plan to act like we were in bed until the staff curfew came to make sure we were in bed. After the coast was clear, we slipped out the front door, bringing our pillows and sleeping bags with us. The field was completely empty, and rather eerie looking in the night sky, with nothing but stars to light up the field. We made it about halfway before we heard panicked footfalls, and we dropped down by some nearby underbrush. It was a single staffer, running clumsily over the uneven field. I smiled, amused that someone was so much older than me, and was afraid of the dark. We decided to set up right up against where the taller, unkempt grass started. I guess sleeping bags would blend in better against them, making us harder to spot to anyone out wandering the campground at night. I laid there smiling, admiring the camaraderie of all our most daring act yet. I watched the stars about twinkling and casting a calm feeling over me as I listened to the sound of the crickets and frogs. Josh began to talk about God and all of creation, and I guess that's when I finally dozed off. I awoke to a completely silent field. I know it was the same one I had fallen asleep in. It just somehow felt different. There was no longer a calming presence. I lifted my head to look at my cabin mates. Not one of them appeared to be awake. At the time, I had a mummy bag, and I imagined how ridiculous it must have looked to wake up and see this idiotic-looking worm staring at me. I smiled, rolling towards another cabin mate, Cody, my back against the reeds, and I fell asleep again. I woke up what felt like a few minutes later. There was a slight breeze brushing over the grass. It was calming. I started falling back to sleep when I heard the faint sound of what I could only imagine to be footfall through the long grass. My eyes shot open in panic. I waited to hear another, but it didn't seem to come. Just as I was closing my eyes again, I heard another. It was closer. The footfalls were steady. They were hard to hear, but sometimes I could pick them up, loud and clear. It was as if someone was sneaking through the grass but stumbling on the uneven ground. As the footsteps got closer, my heart began pounding in my chest. Eventually it got to the point where the footfalls were deliberate and purposeful, as if whoever they belonged to were no longer caring if they were detected or not. The breeze shifted, blowing from behind me. A putrid smell washed over me, one that distinctly reeked of the copper scent of roadkill. Still facing Cody, my eyes began to water up in fear, but through the tears I could see his face stirring. His eyes fluttered open, and suddenly shot up, transfixed on the grass behind me. The footfalls came closer this time. I could feel the presence of whatever they belonged to staring holes in the back of my head. It was menacing, an evil presence. I could almost feel its jagged intent of death. I couldn't imagine what Cody was looking at, but he laid there, face frozen in fear. The foot smell worsened as I heard heavy, labored breathing from right behind me. Cody wanted to scream, I could tell. But even being as young as I was, I knew it would only end in two possibilities: the creature fleeing, or our deaths. I softly shook my head, making sure my mummy bag around me hadn't moved as I did so. He got the message but was still considering screaming or getting up to run. I really couldn't tell, but I wasn't as fast as a runner, so no matter what he decided to do, I was probably as good as dead. I think Cody made up his mind before he could do anything. Another of our cabin mates groaned and shifted in his sleep. I heard an almost human guttural snarl from right behind me. The creature had made up its mind. It was going to attack, and it was going to be messy. I could imagine it hunkering down for the leaping attack as the graph shifted behind me. I screwed my eyes shut and prepared for the end, when suddenly a pack of coyotes called out in the forest behind the field. The snarling ceased and the grass shifted once more. There were several noisy footsteps, getting further and further away, taking the stench with them. I opened up my eyes and Cody was staring behind me, less scared but obviously frightened. "Is it gone?" I mouthed. He nodded ever so slightly. Neither me nor Cody slept that night. We didn't speak a word about it until it was time to leave camp for the year. I approached him before he left and asked what he had seen. He described a very malnourished-looking humanoid. He had the legs and torso of a man, but the head was that of a decapitated deer, and it looked like it put it over its own. His arms were that of a dog's, but when it was preparing to attack, the creature unsheathed some long, lion-like claws. He said he had told Josh, but Josh never believed him. I've never seen Cody again, and I never got to ask Josh about the encounter since he unfortunately lost his life in the Middle East. I've only shared this story once. People have told me it could have been a Wendigo. I've been back several times after this incident, and I haven't found anything else as bizarre as that night.
Wow, that's a spooky one from the Swamp Dweller. Gotta love it when Swampy gets the goosebumps going all over your body. Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for another spooky story. And of course, you could go subscribe to his YouTube channel, youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads on YouTube. And you can check it on out and find out more spooky stories that you may enjoy. All right, let's go to the Cryptid Report, shall we? Filling in for Super Duke again on the Cryptid Report, Robin McRae is here as Super Duke recovers from a lengthy stay in the mountains of Montana looking for Sasquatch. How you doing, Robin?
I'm good. Surprised to be back, but always good to see you.
It's always good when you're here. You know, between you, Super Duke, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, it's always a fun time when you guys are coming on in, and even Mr. Lurks a lot in our chat room saying, "Bring on Super Robin" and her report.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. Thank you. Yeah, I love it here. Have a good time.
Absolutely. How is your weekend in the search for Sasquatch?
Do you know what? It's been pretty good. They, the normal things, which are normal craziness, pounding on the windows, slapping the house, movement in the backyard, it's just the normal. So it's all good.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. And are we just going to talk some stories tonight, or do you have a report?
Whatever you want to talk about. Did you get the photos?
I have some photos here.
Okay. Now, I just want to tell everybody, if you're looking for the Patterson-Gimlin film, that's not it. Okay. But they're decent. So everybody's always asking if I have photos of various things. So Dave has them now.
Well, the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that our radio audience understands what we're looking at here, and our podcast audience. So we're going to have to deep description here. Now, you know what? I'm going to preface this and say there were some that I thought, holy cow, and there were others that I thought, tree stump. But that's just my own eyes, but, I'm going to take your word for it, and we're going to start off here with this one right here, which is you could tell there's a face, there's pointy ears. This one almost looks like a Dogman style.
It is. It's a Dogman baby. His name is Nico. And he was mind speaking. I was actually laying down and he was mind speaking. He wanted me outside and I didn't want to go. We had just moved into the house. I was exhausted. And he insisted if I came out, he would let me take his picture. And I said, well, I'll come out, but if I don't get your picture, then don't talk to me anymore. So I went out and I took some random pictures and he was like 30, 40 feet up in a tree. Definitely not a bear.
Okay. So for people who may not understand, or they look at this photo, they say, that's definitely not, that's definitely a bear. What are you talking about, Robin? Why do you believe that it was not a bear?
Number one, I was out there. All of these beings can cloak. And when you take a photo of them when they're cloaked, they show up in the picture. There was nothing there. Where I live at, not that there are not black bears in South Carolina, there absolutely is. There's never been any sighted by me. Doesn't mean they're not out there. But he was not in that tree. And then when I took the picture and I put him on the camera lens, he was. If that was actually a bear, it would have shown, I would have seen him. And he was high enough in the tree that even for a bear, it was too high.
All right, let's go to the next photo that you have for us tonight. Now, this one looks a little blurry to me. Okay.
Yeah.
Little over zoomed in.
Yeah, this is a dimensional. He was just hanging out in the bushes in the front yard. His head's kind of tucked under. Like I said, if anybody's looking for the Patterson film type photos, I don't have those. I can show you what I do have. And, you know, some people like them, some people don't. I just ask that you be kind. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. Yeah, he kind of is almost like shaped like the letter C. He's got a little head tucked under the leaves and then his body comes down.
Okay, so is that the brown thing right here?
Yeah. Yes, that is him. He was not very big. He was in the bushes. I went outside. I was not actually looking for photos of him. And I happened to see him in the bushes and I was able to get that photo.
Because I see a lot of pareidolia here. A lot
there
of pareidolia.
There is around it. A lot of it around it, like the leaves, you can see that looks like faces. I disregard those because when it comes to the leaves, it's just too easy to believe it's something that it's not. The only thing that I actually paid any attention to in this photo was the tan part that's tucked under the leaves. And that was only because I saw it moving in the bushes.
Right. Moving on. A big giant handprint in powder.
Yeah. Yeah. For most people that are really in this field of research, they're, for whatever reason, they seem to have this white powder. They actually, on their hands, they have like a waxy type film that sometimes can be white. This was more of a powder, and a lot of people notice it when they find handprints. Tree drawings that they've done for me, I've noticed the same white powder on it. This particular handprint, the story behind that was I was home alone. I had went in, I cleaned the bedroom, you know, washed the sheets, did the vacuum. This particular pillow, as crazy as it sounds, on the other side of it is Chewbacca from Star Wars, because my husband loves Star Wars, and I had bought it for him. And I turned it around with the black side out, not for any particular reason. I just sat it down, and I was doing working on the rest of the house and making dinner, and I found this white powder on the floor in my sitting room. And I thought, what in the world is this? So I went to go clean it up. I came back with a broom and dustpan, and most of it was gone, and there were big fingerprints in it. I never went back in the bedroom. Pat got home from work. He walked in the bedroom to take a shower in our bathroom, and he came out and he said, so what's with the giant handprint? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I've been here by myself all day. Walked in the bedroom, and there it was.
Oh, wow.
And you know, it took almost a year and a half to get that washed off the pillow because it wouldn't come off.
Now, I always thought that Sasquatch handprints were very greasy.
They actually are, and there was a grease base to it. I have actual handprints on my car that have been there for almost 2 years that even going through the car wash won't get them out. They have that oil base to their skin. That's why we had such a problem getting it off this pillow. It finally wore off. Washing it did not remove it.
That is crazy.
Oh, Igor Borsteff went nuts over it. He was so excited. This is Trudy. Trudy, as you can see on her head, she has more of like a teddy bear face, a little bit of the ears, and then you can see her hand going off to the side right there. And then where her leg is, you can barely see it, guys, but there is a little bit of her tail. She's actually a hybrid that is half Dogman, half Bigfoot. Her mom and dad ran together in the same, in the same clan. We had dogmen that lived nearby and would come on the property anyway, and that was what they produced.
Wow. I don't see a tail.
It's where the thigh is, and it looks like the thigh is like really oversized right there. So when you get down on that lower thigh, it looks like it's this big thigh, but it's actually the tail. And all these pictures are taken at my house or out in my yard.
How far away from your house?
This particular picture was about 100 feet in the backyard, and then off 100 feet. The handprint, of course, was in the house. Some of the other ones were probably within 50, 75 feet of the house.
Wow.
The dimensional one was just right out in the front yard. Okay,
so what happened?
Yeah, I put security cameras out because we have a lot. We used to have, we don't now, but we used to have a lot of deer that came in the front yard, and I wanted to watch the deer. What I actually got was all kinds of stuff. On the left-hand side, you can see a rod going through there. And if you notice, there's a beam of light coming down on the house that's actually coming from a UFO. And the room of the house that beam is on is my bedroom.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I had triangular marks all over my body the next day.
Very odd. Very odd. Let's see how much time we have before we go to break. 2 minutes here. Let's get to another photograph.
This is a weird looking little thing. You can see is the head. I don't even see the body on it. I heard him rumbling around in the bushes outside. It looks like if you go and talk to different people, it looks like a pukwudgie. I've never had to deal with them. Mine spoke with them. Yes, I've never had to deal with them. And I never saw another one. And normally my understanding is they're in groups. So I thought that was just rather odd, but you can clearly see the face and the ears hanging off to the side. But I couldn't see any body on them. I absolutely couldn't. But I can't deny that it's there.
And this one here.
Yeah, that's one of the big guys out back. He was moving through the trees. I saw the trees move and I could not physically see him. So I just snapped the camera where the trees were moving and he showed up. You can see his outline. And we can see the black from him as well. Can't see the facial features on this one, but you can definitely see what he is.
Now, are you taking these photos with a camera or your smartphone?
You know what? Duke gave me a wonderful camera, and I do have some photos that are on the memory card that I need to take off. The ones we're looking at tonight were actually just taken with my camera phone. I take my phone everywhere I go. So if I get into any trouble, I have it. And what happens is they now have gotten to where they just think it's part of me. So a lot of times it's easier for me to get a photo with the camera phone because they're so used to me having it. So now I'm trying to get everybody retrained to this, the camera is just part of me too when it's hanging around my neck.
Right. Robin, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are just moments away from going to break here on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return, we got more photographs and more information coming your way, audience, regarding the legend of Sasquatch. Imagine that. Imagine that. We got another 30 minutes here on the Mighty SOR. We're going to run with Robin until the top of the hour here. Why not? We get to do that. I get to make the calls here. So I've got some power. We'll do it. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio when we return. All right, we're clear, Robin.
How are you doing tonight?
I'm tired.
You look like you're tired. Did you get any rest over the weekend at all?
Not really.
Ugh.
Not
You need
really.
like a 24-hour nap.
Well, not this week. Let me look at my calendar here. Not this week or next week, but in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to be taking a couple weeks off just to refresh everything.
Yeah, you need to. We can't have you go down. Everybody counts on you.
I know.
It's like with Duke's show. He wasn't on air last Sunday because he was out in the woods. And I had all kinds of people get hold of me. They were so upset that they missed his show. And I'm like, trust me, you didn't miss it. You know, it's rare he's not there, but for this week, he's just not. So.
Yeah. Well, that's super dude.
Well, yeah, but you're pretty important too. We got to keep you guys up on air.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
And Dirty Filth is amazing. I've been watching what he's drawing. He's fantastic.
Let's see here. I think Duke is still kicking my ass in subscribers too. He's about 1,400 subscribers ahead.
The race is on.
Yep.
So, but you're both pretty popular, so that's a good thing.
Well, it's the beard and hair combinations that we go
That's
with.
what I think it is. Like I need to let the grays all come out and just, see what I can do. But yeah, they've been pretty active. I'm really surprised. Lots of people are still getting a hold of me going, this is happening to me. I don't understand why it's happening to me and what do they want? And it's just been really a busy time. Very, very busy.
Oh, yes. I fully agree with that. Fully agree.
Yeah, hopefully when you have time off, you can get up to see your guys.
We'll see. I got a lot of work to do around my house too that I need to catch. And most of those, I mean, I'm still going to be working my daytime job too, right? So, because I have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
That pays the bills.
Yeah, definitely.
So, we'll make some time.
Yeah.
But,
you need a giant nap first.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can tell at night when I start to get tired because and
then you yawn and I yawn.
Excuse me. My head starts to get itchy. That's how I know. Start to get itchy head.
Oh goodness.
Wow.
Yeah, like you said, they're not Patterson-Gimlin film pictures, but some of them I think are okay. I get a lot of people that like them, and the people that don't see it, that's okay. I don't get offended by it. I mean, it is what it is. But I don't, there's not a lot of photos out there that are a whole lot better. So they're not the best, not the worst.
Hey, you can only capture what you're able to capture.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to. And I think that's just fine.
And Robin, I appreciate the time you spent to talk with me and share some of your pictures with me as well.
Oh, thank you. You're so kind.
Oh, Dirty, you're such a cute little troll.
Is. And I tell you what, he is phenomenal. I watched the work that he does, and it's absolutely fantastic.
He's totally phenomenal.
He is.
Totally phenomenal.
I can't even draw an egg, so I'm always so impressed when I can see anybody do it.
Oh, I hear you there.
I can draw a Snoopy head. That's it. That is the limit of my talents.
Better one up on me then. Excuse me. One up on me is what I did say.
They just did, and I'm going to be honest, I don't even know if it's good, but they just put out the documentary. it's not even really a documentary. They did this interview with Jason Kenzie, and it just came out on Amazon yesterday. So it's like, I told Duke, I said, I'm not even watching it. He's going to watch it for me and tell me how bad it turned out. Yeah.
We have 15 seconds. Thank you again tonight to Science Bob with 5, John, Lala, Dennis, and Cat Chaser for the amazing and incredible love and support that you guys give us on a nightly basis. It's really way too kind. Here we go with the final half hour, everyone. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for tuning us on in. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website, we have a plethora of features for you. Radio show and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. She's going to go with us till the top of the hour. Robin McRae is here with the Cryptid Report, filling in for Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio, who's still a little worn out after a giant tour of the mountains of Montana searching for Sasquatch. And Robin, thank you so much for being here and joining us. We really do appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you having me here. You guys have been so tolerant of me hanging out lately.
Well, you know, we kind of like you. We do. You know,
we get along. We get along good.
Yeah. Here's another photo.
Yeah, this one, you guys, I'm being honest, it does look like a lot of foliage, and I apologize. What had happened with this is there's a white male. His name is Shadow, and he's been around me a very long time. And at the back of my yard, it's nothing but trees. I live in the woods. And the only reason I don't normally like photos that have the circles on them, I did put it on this because he blends right in, and he is white. He was standing back there. I knew he was back there. I watched him walk back there. And so I was, making the attempt to get it. So I do apologize. He doesn't pop out more than he does.
It happens. Let's get to a question here from Sovereign. It's a known thing that sometimes Sasquatches accompany men in black. Have you heard of this? And what is the role of the Sasquatch during these visitations?
Generally, in my experience and from the witnesses that I've talked to, they don't show up with the men in black. It's more that the men in black follow everywhere they go. This is not a good thing. The men in black are from what I call, there's probably a better term for it, but what I call the dark government, shadow government, black government. They aren't in our regular government that you see every day. Normally you get the shadow government that shows up when you have UFOs, ETs, Bigfoot, cryptids, all of these things. And it's basically because they do not want you to talk about them. So when you see them, they're not like when they come, and I've had them parked at the end of my driveway. When they come, they aren't bringing a Sasquatch with them. Are they around? They are, because that's one of the primary targets that they have. They don't want the paranormal out. They don't want the cryptids out. And they're kind of like the enforcement agency to make sure that nobody talks about it.
Wow. All right, let's go to another photo. This one here, kind of a flat face. That looks almost alien to me.
Yeah, they actually, every single one of them looks different, just like we look different. There are no two alike unless they're twins that are genetically matched. This guy, I was out in the backyard. I was playing with the dogs, and he simply popped his head out from the bushes.
Now, are we talking this one on top or this one in the bottom here?
The one in the bottom, the one on top, is it possible that's a Bigfoot? It is, but it's not clear enough to me where I would consider that not pareidolia, because to me that wasn't real clear. The one underneath of it to me is definitely, I know what it is, because I saw it when he put his head out, and you can see it. They don't all have hair covering their entire face. This particular individual didn't have hair at the eyes and the nose, and he had the conial head. So that one, the one above it, can we say that's one? We can think it's a possibility, but to me, it's not clear enough that I would put my stamp on it. The one on the bottom, definitely.
And what about this one?
Okay, this guy down here on the lower left-hand side, I got this at the same time as the other one in two different shots. He was less than 5 feet away, and he was poking his head out. Now, this one, you can see the nose, you can see the eyes, a little bit of hair on the top. He really was more the balder face. He didn't have a lot of hair. It was very sparse. I have a picture, and I don't even know if I sent it to you. It's a female. She was almost like blending in with the foliage, where she almost looked green. She had no hair except little sprigs of hair sticking out the top of her head. She was very old. But yeah, this guy was he was not far from the one that we just previously saw.
That is excellent. All right, let's take a look here. This one has this one has a pig snout or some very big lips.
If you look in the bottom right-hand corner, you see a dark blob there. That's actually my ponytail. We found out that if I go out in the woods and you take a picture of me, and I hate my picture taken, that a lot of times we find them in the background. So in this particular photo, what you see in the front is a juvenile. It was just a baby, and the mom is standing behind it, and you can just see a little bit of her eye socket. And for the longest time, I thought she had a cone head, until someone that I know actually blew it up, made it a little bit easier to see. And there's actually a second baby that's just climbed up and draped over the top of her head.
I'm noticing a lot of that.
Yeah.
In a lot of photographs that I see.
Yeah.
Do you believe that, and I'm going to ask you this, and I don't say this as defense to your photos or anything, but I don't believe that all photographers are poor. I don't believe that all video camera operators shake. Yet we get a lot of blurry photos.
The blurry photos.
Is it infrasound?
Yes. The couple things happen when you take a photo of them. You can have the best camera on the planet. You can be standing and put it on a tripod so it can't shape. It's not going to change your outcome. When you take their photos, and we touched on this briefly in another show, number one, don't ever put them in the center of your film. If they don't know you're taking a picture of them, then you have a shot at it. But you always want them just slightly off center, because when they're right in the center, and if they move that infrasound towards the camera, it makes it even worse. But because they radiate that energy, that high vibration and that high energy, it automatically blurs your photo. Now, in Patty's case, Patty was so scared, she was trying to get out of there. And they do have control over that energy and vibration. I mean, to a degree. I mean, they're going to radiate it anyway, but they can pull it back. And she was scared, and she wasn't trying to use any of the paranormal abilities. She just wanted out, and they got very fortunate. And again, their camera back then was not the digital. Digital, I don't believe, in my opinion, is necessarily our friend when we're trying to get photos of them, because it seems that they can manipulate that easier than, like, per se, the 8mm or whatever, 60mm that the Patterson-Gimlin film was done on. It makes a huge difference. If they're cloaked, go outside and just take random pictures. If they're cloaked and out there, they show up. Like this one that's sticking out from behind the tree. You can barely see her face, but you can definitely see her breasts, and you can see her sticking out from behind the tree. That fence that's right there is my backyard. Well, part of my backyard where I have it fenced in for the dogs. The dogs were out playing, and she was having a lot of fun watching and playing with the dogs. She'd throw sticks in the pen, and they'd grab the sticks and run around and have a real good time. And she was very happy. She said her name was Matilda.
Oh, very nice. Very nice. Okay, let's move on here.
This is an ET.
The green
You
part.
can see them nestled in the grass there. Yep, right there.
Oh, there's the.
We had a UFO. Yeah, the UFO was there the night before. I did not expect to see anything in the grass. I did see movement, but I didn't see him at the time. And I just started taking random pictures, and there he was. He was just laying down right in the grass. And we've had that happen before, where even my son-in-law and I were outside one night, and the UFOs were out, and he saw one across from the driveway.
Wow. Wow, I've never seen something that looks like that. Looks stoned.
Yeah.
To be honest. There's another close-up of him. See the nose, the mouth, the eyes, and the bulbous round.
He was just laying there. He was just laying there.
All right.
This one just looks like a little person. You can just see the human-shaped body in it. It is not a Bigfoot. It was very small. It was standing up in the grass. The nearest I can figure, I don't want to say it's an ET, but it's possible. But it looks more like a little person to me. It was not big at all. I want to say it was not but 2 foot. This one I find is really interesting. If you look at the circle, and again, I apologize, I don't normally like the circles. You see 3 dots. That's a triangular shaped craft. That's a UFO. And then when you look directly underneath of it, you see this bright white portal that's opened up, and there's actually a head coming out of it. And then I did send Dave a copy of the enhancement that shows the portal and the head a little bit clearer. But this was outside my garage.
Nice. They're coming into park. They're coming into park.
Whatever they need to do.
You got that right. Let's take another photo here.
That is the close-up of the portal, and you can very clearly see the head.
All right, we'll go with a couple more here.
This one, you can a hand. You see the hand. This is over baby Zerky's face. Zerky has been at my home since I moved here. He was quite young when I got here, and his mom's name is Mwaka. His dad's name is Shandoa, and for whatever reason, he liked my front yard, and he was out there all the time. This is Brownie. Now, the thing with this is Igor Borstev was at my house. The photo was taken of Igor, and what was in the background was this guy. This particular one is now 10.5 feet tall. I have ongoing contact with him. I have had for years. He is excessively dear to me.
To me, that looks like a tree stump.
Yeah, I sent you the close-up of it. You can see his eyes and his nose.
There you go.
That is the close-up. And you can see like where the shagginess is under the chin, and where they don't really have a neck, but there, and then you can see the nose and the eye sockets. That is one of the footprints. Wasn't excessively big. It was from one of the adolescents. This is, you can see him in there. That is a lizard man. Again, he was in my backyard. Did not know he was out there. Didn't try to hurt me. I didn't have any issues with him. I just happened to get his picture.
Now that freaks me out.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I saw the photo. I got to tell you. I knew something was back there. The energy didn't radiate for a Bigfoot or a Dogman or even the ETs. And I was like, but it did feel really bizarre. Not bad. It didn't try to hurt. It didn't try to zap. None of these things that I have photos of have ever tried to hurt me. Doesn't mean they can't, but they have not.
Do you ever wonder why you're getting the photographs and other people aren't?
Do you know what? I wonder about this stuff every single day. I don't even know what the traction is. But my husband gets a lot of them. We just go out and take random pictures. I stress that to everybody. Instead of running around looking for the money shot, we literally take thousands of random pictures. Does that mean we get them in every picture? Absolutely not. We delete more than we ever get. But we occasionally do get something. But everything, excuse the cat, she's in heat. she's a trip. She was a rescue. But anyway, when you're taking these photos, if they're cloaked, they pop up. If you're waiting for that great money shot where you've got this crystal clear view, like Patty, it really is so few and far between. I'm not saying people don't have them. They absolutely do, but they're few and far between. And it's so much easier if you just go into an area, if you feel that's where your activity's at, or even at your house, just take random pictures. Worst case scenario, you delete them because there's nothing in them.
Makes sense. We got about 6 minutes to go with you.
Okay.
Here's a very interesting one.
Yeah.
It looks very feminine.
Yes. The top one looks feline because it is a cat person. Her name is Amula. The bottom circle, I'm so hesitant to say that it is anything because it just looks too blurry for my taste. But when I spoke with her, she said that was her baby. I did circle it for that reason. But like I said, again, I get really picky. Like, I don't have crystal, they're not the Patterson quality, but people get mad at me because they'll, especially my husband, he'll send them to me and say, look at what I got out there. And I'm like, okay, I get what it is and the energy might match it, but it's not good enough to what I consider. And he gets some fantastic photos. He really does. But I'm probably the worst critic.
All right. Let's move on to another one.
This is the UFO. That was actually there's footage on World Bigfoot Radio of the craft itself. It's separated into two. This was the actual video was taken by my son-in-law and it was sent to MUFON. MUFON sent him a very nice letter back saying that it was not terrestrial and that it was a class 1 sighting. What we had, and the photos are all taken from my front porch. It was right not too far off the side of my house in the distance. It was a saucer that spun with multicolored lights, and then it released, after a while, it released a ship out of the back of it that was red lights. This was another ship that was with it. But when we saw the video, we only saw two, but then this showed up in the footage.
Wow. Were you able to communicate with the beings on it?
I have, yeah. They since have been back. Yeah, I get way too much contact with the ETs. My last abduction was 2.5 months ago.
My goodness. Excellent.
It's been going on my whole life, yeah. Yep.
All right, let's go to another photo that you have here.
This is the red craft that came out the back of the saucer, and we'll see the saucer in a second, but this is the red craft that was discharged off the back.
I like that photo because I've seen orbs that color.
I actually had a craft that was that color, saucer shape, come down in my yard in Michigan. And then when it did, I watched it land in my yard, and then I had almost 2 hours of missing time. Okay, this one you can see on the left-hand side is the saucer with the colored lights. And then on the right, you can see the red craft that was discharged from the back of it.
Very cool. All right, let's get to, I think we got time for one or two more.
That's another one. There should be one in there, Dave, that if you want to move it again, that'll show you an up close of the saucer. Where's there? I'd keep going because it's in there. I sent it all at one time. And it does show the saucer. There you go. That was the main craft. And as it spun, it was multicolored lights that went around it.
Wow. Yeah, you can kind of see like a yellow here, a blue here, and a red in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what time of night was this caught at?
8:30.
Oh, so still pretty early.
Oh, yeah. They had my son-in-law and Pat, my husband, were out in the front yard one night, and there was like 2 or 3 of the white ones that were out there. And my husband grabbed a flashlight and started flashing it, and they were communicating back and forth. I have no idea what it meant, but they were flashing lights at each other.
Yeah, I love that kind of communication.
Yeah.
I totally love that kind of communication.
Not all of the ETs are bad. I've been abducted since before I was 4. My first memory one was I was 4. And there's been good times of abductions, but there's been a lot of them that have been not so good.
So at 8:30 at night, you're looking at this happening maybe October, November?
Yeah. Actually, this one was done in, I believe it was either the end of October or first part of November.
Right. Right. So excellent. All right, Robin.
Yeah, the video's on World Bigfoot Radio.
There's the video of a UFO.
Oh, that's part of it. Yeah. Yeah. It just looks blurrier up on the screen, but yeah, that's another one.
That's very nice. Very nice. All right. Then we got the beans coming
that's
down.
the other one. Yep.
And I think we are
Yep, that's
done.
it.
Done for now. Which is great. Those are great. Thank you for sharing those.
Yeah, no problem.
We got a minute to go here, my friend. Tell everybody where they can find your information.
You know what? A lot of my information is on World Bigfoot Radio, and you'll find it there. There is a movie that just came out called Searching for Sasquatch, Bigfoot Mind Speak. It's on Amazon Prime, or Amazon, I guess. It just came out. I haven't watched it. It's a series of interviews that was done with me with Jason Kenzie, and we just filmed this here in July. And then he has a documentary that will be out in the fall, and parts of that interview will be in it. Not a lot, but some of it will be. So you can find it on Amazon. But most of my stuff is on Duke's show. Also, In the Dark with Tracy Bush has it. And then if anybody needs to contact me, I'm at RLYNNE and then a period, Forest, FOREST, PEOPLE
Excellent. Robin, always a pleasure when you fill in for Super Duke. And we really do love it when you're here. So much knowledge, so much difference to show in opinion. And I just think it's fantastic that you're back. And we'll talk to you in a couple of nights' time.
Sounds good. You guys all take care. Thanks for having me on, Dave.
Always a pleasure to have you here, Robin. Thank you so much. Robin McRae, everybody.
Bye.
We want to say a big thank you to her. Big thank you to Swamp Dweller. And, of course, our guest tonight, Franc Milburn, talking about the UFO agendas. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. Spreaker, Twitch, YouTube, LGAP, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
we're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall try again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. All right, we're clear. Oh. It's such a tiny little elastic on. Oh, Robin, I got you on mute. Hold on 2 seconds.
Oh.
There you go, sweetheart. Sorry about that. That was my bad.
Oh, that's okay. I hope you find a way to get some rest.
Yeah, well, I'm going right now. I don't have to do any editing tonight. So I'm going right now to get some sleep and Party on and do it all tomorrow.
Well, you take care, sweetie. I hope everybody liked the photos. Like I said, they're not the best, but they're not the worst.
I liked them.
Yeah. Hopefully everybody else did. They kept asking me for photos, so I have more, but I figured that was good enough.
There you go.
You
All
get
right.
some rest, and I will talk at you later.
We'll talk soon, okay?
Bye.
Bye-bye. Robin
Okay, bye-bye.
Oh, I love her. She is just so special. Just so special. And thank you for filling in for Super Dookie. I'm going to call it early tonight, guys, because I honestly do have to get some sleep. Tomorrow night on the show, Steve Weston is here. Excuse me. We're going to have to talk about hidden symbols in Hollywood. It's going to be fun. A little bit different than what we do, but it's going to be a lot of fun because Dirty Filth says so. So we'll talk to y'all tomorrow night, everyone. Thank you to Cat Chaser, Science Bob, John, Lala, and Dennis for the super chats. We'll talk soon.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.